Well, last night this happened. If you're on the Rumbles or YouTubes, I'm sorry you can't hear this. We are the champions, my friends.
I can't sing that high.
Folks, if you were in Colorado last night, with some exceptions, some notable exceptions, we'll talk about those. What a great day at the ballot. HH has gone the way of the dodo, and it wasn't close. I don't know if you remember, our friend Michael Fields was here on the radio yesterday saying, hey, he thinks it'll be close. I should have asked him to define close, because as it stands right now on the Secretary of State's website, you can find all the election results there. It beat HH down. Voters voted no, 60%. Voters voting yes, take more of my money, grow more government, 39.83%. That was a 20-point drubbing. I mean, that's just a phenomenal outcome when you consider that the legislature got to choose all the ballot language they wanted. And the one thing they left out was, do you love puppies? If they had put, do you love puppies in the ballot question, it might have won. But they had every word they wanted in there. The courts wouldn't touch it. They jammed 4 issues into one measure when you and I could only put a single issue matter on. They had everything going for them, and this thing got crushed. It's so bad that last night at 8:46 p.m., over at one of the newspapers that isn't the Denver Gazette, there was already an opinion piece jotted off by Scott Wasserman. Scott Wasserman is the, what is he? He is the president of the Bell Policy Center for Larger Government and Taking Your Money. He is the Sinestro to Michael Field's Green Lantern on these fiscal issues. He already had an opinion piece written. I mean, it's hundreds and hundreds of words, and it begins with, and he doesn't choose the title, but what happens now that Prop HH has failed? A few tough options remain. That means dude had to have had this in the can. Had to have had this thing ready to go. That, and I had heard last night, I stopped by the watch party there at JJ's with Danielle Jurinsky and the rest of the Aurora crew. They had an almost perfect night last night. And I had already heard before 7 o'clock, before they started calling things, that the governor had already reached out to the minority leaders, Mike Lynch, who we're going to try to get on the air later today, and minority leader over in the Senate, that's a guy named Paul Lundeen, to have conversations about, hey, how can we move forward? Will you work with me on trying to get some, property tax relief, which I'm thrilled, by the way, to hear that the governor did that. That's great. But the timing of it made me think somebody knows something. You know what I mean? Somebody can smell that smell, and it's them on fire or something. So
you smell what the rock is cooking.
That's right. You smell what the rock is cooking. But my hat's off to the governor for doing that. That's the right answer on behalf of Colorado. I'm anxious to see what that looks like. But holy smokes, did Michael Fields and KBB and Rose Puglisi and Barb Kirkmeyer, who also we're going to have to reach out to Barb, Senator Kirkmeyer, Billy. She said she'd come on. It was quite an effort, quite a drubbing. And every single time the We Hate Tabor people show up on the ballot, I think what they figured out is, even if they don't use the word Tabor, even if they pick all the language they want, once people sniff out that you're trying to take away their Tabor, they beat this thing back. So that gives me some hope. That gives me some hope for Coloradans. But that's kind of been the case, Billy, for a while now. That is ballot measures. We are a much more discerning, fiscally conservative group. But on the candidate stuff, it
is really weird. That is very accurate. It's a weird dichotomy to where we seem more conservative on some of the ballot measures, but somewhat liberal and very liberal in some areas on who we elect. Now, there was, in my mind, because this is my neighborhood, not yours, that it was wonderful to see Mike Coffman take down Juan Marcano.
And big.
Yeah, that was really big. In fact, I had a conversation with a voter few days ago, and this is just casual outside of the radio station type of conversation. And this person was talking about Juan Marcano and how he was branding himself so often as a Democrat. And they were like, why? What is the reason? And I said, it's very clear. There are two reasons for it. One, he wants that warm feeling that a lot of Colorado voters have for Democrats. And they said, well, why is that a deal? I said, because he's a socialist. Like, he's so far left.
So far
I
left.
said, the idea for Marcano that I explained to this person is that it doesn't matter what your question is to Juan Marcano. His answer is more government. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what the question is. His answer is always going to be more government.
4 is more government.
Yes, it's always going to come to that. So he is trying to engender himself, and he's trying to wear that jacket and say, I'm a friendly, cuddly Democrat just like the rest of you like. Not letting you know what he was actually looking for. I said, go back and look at what he did in the Aurora City Council when he was sitting there. What were some of the things he was looking for doing and proposing? Where was his head and his heart? And they went, oh. And I'm like, that's why.
Yeah.
I go, if you see anybody that is trumpeting which party they belong to in Colorado, dig a little deeper. Figure out why they want to be associated with that, because they probably want that rub for some reason or another.
It's interesting too. It was a 16-point drubbing, 54 to 38 as it stands now. That's crushing.
That's nice.
But if you remember 4 years ago when Mike ran, and we're going to have Mike on in the 8 o'clock hour. He was pretty happy yesterday, as you can imagine. It was a split. It was almost like a 4-way split, and Mike ended up winning. But a very close race over the head of the NAACP. Good Lord, I've got basketball in the brain. NAACP out there in Aurora. Also a great dude, by the way, Omar Montgomery, really solid guy. But he eked out a victory 4 years ago. And everyone had thought that it was the divided field that was the difference maker. If it was going to be a one-on-one, which ostensibly this was, it was going to be much different. And Mike proved that, man. I mean, round up to 55% of the vote compared to round down to 38%. That's just a whooping. That is just a smoking.
Yeah.
The rest of Aurora City Council, nearly perfect evening. So a council that just a few years ago had been dominated by the libs, by the progressives. As you know, that's flipped when Zvonek and Jurinsky and the others all got elected. Well, last night, not only did they return Francoise Bergen, who is fantastic. She's a conservative. Curtis Gardner, who is almost always a conservative, although he does some of his own things. But also we had her on the show here. Stephanie won. She won that. So it's a 7-3 split. The only race and it was close, but not close enough, was Jono Scott, who I really like. Jono's a great dude, solid guy. He and his wife and little kids were there last night. He just couldn't get over the goal line on that.
He's in my ward, so that hurt. That hurt a little bit. I was a little surprised.
Good dude.
That. Yeah, I saw a lot of Jono's signs. Yep. I was really optimistic. The other thing that just, as a post-mortem that I really hope conservatives in Colorado take a look at is Aurora. Aurora is not a bastion of Republicans.
Oh my God.
It is not
way.
Overwhelming Republicans.
No
it isn't something, it's not something like we're talking about Weld County and other areas in which you have a staunch Republican base. You don't have that in Aurora. It is very diverse. Yet the Republicans in Aurora have figured out a message that resonates. And they figured out
from the R, by the way. This is the thing. I bet you if the ballot had R's and D's on it, different outcome.
Yes.
But when people are left to just the individuals and then they have to go out and do whatever research or different.
On a side note, there's one thing that I've seen, and Coffman isn't the first person to do this, so it is not his thing of doing. But in my opinion, one of the best uses of his, I would say, soft PR. It's not overt campaigning, but it is a really, really smart tactic. And I don't care what party you're in. I'm just going to tell you this is a very smart tactic if you're in this role. That Coffman has signs printed that when there are local improvements going on in your neighborhood, there's a sign up there that says promises, promises made, promises kept. Coffman's administration doing this, putting your tax dollars to work, doing this funding. It is a really, really nice sign that they put up next to a lot of these neighborhood improvements. And I've seen a number in 10 to 15 miles within my house.
Wow.
And it's been kind of nice to see that as I go, further north into parts of Aurora where I'm traveling for some of the trivia things. I see these signs, and it's a great reminder to people in that neighborhood, because you may not see that sign when you're driving by once, but if you're in the neighborhood and you drive by 4, 5, 6, a dozen times over the course of the work, you have a message that is resonating.
That's a good thing to do.
Yeah, it's really smart.
Who's paying for those signs?
I have no idea, but even if he's taking some of our tax money to carve off a little bit of the project to put those signs up to remind the voters, I'm cool with it because I like the messaging. And again, I would say it's smart for either party to say, at least demonstrating I'm putting your tax dollars to use.
I like the message. It would bum me out if it was taxpayer dollars in this way. I don't know if you recall this some years ago. Underneath a whole bunch of road construction signs and stuff across the state of Colorado, there were little signs that said Governor Bill Ritter on all of them.
Yes,
and it became hugely controversial because people were like, whoa, we're taking project funds to give a shout out to the guy under the gold dome.
Yeah.
So I hope it's campaign funds. I love the message. I just hope it's campaign funds. I haven't tracked the conservative, not conservative tallies of mayors and city council members that won. I'm going through this. It looks like Arvada is going to have a new mayor. They've lost Mark after, God, he's been out there. I think he's been mayor of Arvada for 100 years. But now it's a new mayor named Lauren Simpson. Close one. 50.4 to 49.6-ish. It looks like what separates them is less than 400 votes. Separates them. So I don't know if it's been called on that, but it looks like they're going to end up with Mayor Lauren Simpson. Don't know if she's a conservative or not a conservative or anything like that. Scrolling through this thing, the only other thing that hurts my heart here a bit is my own Douglas County. We had we had Andy Jones on, and I'm a big Andy Jones fan, always have been. And it looks like the conservatives did not make any progress on trying to take back some more of those seats. So Andy got close, but he got close last time, didn't get it. Interestingly, in District C, and by the way, I don't even know what the letters mean, but in District C, 2 Republicans, 2 conservatives, Jason Page and Dave DiCarlo, we had Dave DiCarlo on, they each lost to this liberal guy, Brad, but combined their votes would have won. But the two of them, 2 conservatives going at it.
It's a lesson. That is a lesson going forward. Maybe we don't do that. We saw that. I mean, oddly enough, I thought in the midterms we saw that a little while ago here.
Well, and like we're not learning. You and I talked off air about what does this mean for guys with last names that rhyme with Schmidty?
Yes, exactly.
Who's running for president?
Yeah. How does this impact JFK? What does that mean?
Who does it take more from?
Yeah.
Maybe it's that same Ross Perot question, but here at least 2 conservatives tore up whatever vote there was. And so this guy's going to win with 48% of the vote. This guy's going to be elected to the school board. There's nothing else like that out there. It's just that part was disappointing. 5A, and I'm looking for the outcome. You remember I was a 5A guy, and as much as I tried to cajole and coerce Michael Fields into it, I just couldn't bring him there because he hates people. No, I'm kidding.
And puppies.
5A passed.
Yeah.
That's the mill levy override. That's the let's increase some of the taxes in a way, or at least hang on to more of them from your property values. The companion piece was the bond in 5B. 5B lost. So
it's so weird.
I don't, I mean, like I'm what?
Yeah. I don't understand that messaging. You and I talked about it off the air that it's a very weird messaging when the bond loses, but the tax passes. Because I'm really trying to climb into the head of that voter, because what you're saying and the choice that you've made is I would like the government to take more money out of my bottom line and my paycheck rather than to ask the government for other people, maybe not me or maybe me, to invest into bonds that then will pay a yield later on down the road. And the problem that I have with that is that we understand how willy-nilly the government becomes with your tax money because it becomes a steady stream. It's a revenue they don't have to worry about.
That's right.
They have to be fiscally responsible on the bonds and their ratings and the return. And that there's a lot more pressure on making sure you perform if you do these funding measures through bonds. Plus, it is voluntary participation. The people that are investing the money are making the choice rather than the government making the choice for you. That it's hard for me to wrap my head around that choice from a voter. But again, that's why we get to vote.
Speaking of Aurora, there was a ballot question, 3A. It was a referred measure amending the city charter to replace gender-specific terms with gender-neutral nouns.
Yeah.
it got crushed.
Yeah, it did.
58 to 41. People are like, whatever we're using right now, don't care. We're not going to change it. We're going to keep going with this thing right here.
This is the funny thing is that one of my children that is of voting age now, we were sitting down at the table and we were going through it because we kind of like to do that as a family. I think it's fun. It's an exercise, and we have debates, and we don't all even vote the same, but it's very interesting. It's just fun. It's a fun activity. And he gets down there and he reads that one and he goes, "What?" And he reads it again. He goes, "What?" And he goes, This is the problem?
Yeah.
He goes,
yeah, right.
This
right.
is what they focused on as
this
being
is why there's
the
so many
issue?
unhoused.
Yes,
This is
exactly. He's like, why do I care about it? He goes, the number of things that we can deal with. And he goes, why do I have to vote on this? And he was just, and the thing is, he is of the mindset, he's the younger generation where the pronoun thing is positive for him. He would be a yes vote, but he voted no because he's like, this is stupid. Why are you asking for me? Why do I have to make this? Of all the things you come to me and ask me to change,
This is it.
This is the thing that is most
the
important.
big one.
Yeah, he felt like it was a waste of his time, so he voted no.
I didn't realize it was part of the charter that had to be changed by voters.
I know.
There are
idea,
three other
but still.
questions you got to vote on, Billy.
Yeah.
3B, 3C, and 3D, all related to law enforcement and firefighters, police and firefighters. They all passed by huge margins.
Wow.
We'll talk with Chief Art Acevedo from the Aurora Police Department. He'll be in here with us at 7. I saw him last night as well. And I think he's undercover because he was wearing a polo shirt and walking around. And maybe he showed me how to frisk people. No, I'm kidding. He never did that. We're saving that for you in here, Billy.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
But outside of Colorado, and there's probably some races you guys were following. Oh, one other one. We continue to hate smokers and tobacco users because I passed by a huge margin.
Yes, we do.
If you are a tobacco user, Colorado hates you. So just consider that in your decision about whether or not to keep on keeping on with the smokes and stuff. But nationally, kind of a different story, man.
Yeah, there were some highlights, but there were a lot of lowlights. A lot of lowlights.
There were. If you look at Ohio, and folks, if you weren't tracking this, there was something that was sent to the ballot that would amend the Ohio Constitution to enshrine in it kind of like what Colorado has statutorily right now, which is abortion up until kindergarten or whatever it is. And, the governor, DeWine, very popular governor, he campaigned hard against this thing, and it passed by a huge amount. That ensures for me something you and I had talked about a long time ago. And that is after Dobbs. And that is, listen, Colorado is going to see the exact same kind of measure on the ballot in 2024, because what they realize is this has the potential to change election results in candidate races.
Yeah, it absolutely does. And the interesting part is, if you look at those results in Ohio, the yeses are about 56, 57%, right in there. Now, let's jump in the Wayback Machine to several months ago. And you remember when there was that special election that was called by the Republican state legislators, and they were trying to change the threshold for how you would be able to change the Constitution. It was legitimately an effort to prevent this from passing because they were trying to get the margin up to 60%, which if it was at 60, this would have failed. And so the lesson here that I think people need to understand is that in 2 elections this year, there were moves that were going to restrict people's access to abortions. And not once, but twice, voters in Ohio showed out in droves and pummeled them. Sometimes you need to read the room, that there may be some messaging points that are popular with conservatives and Republicans that aren't going to be winners in the larger votes.
The thing I thought would be persuasive from Governor DeWine was he campaigned on the idea that, listen, this isn't the right measure for Ohio because it's so extreme. It actually wipes out, arguably, a statute we have that provides for parental notification for abortions for kids under a certain age. Well, that makes sense to me. No, whether you're pro-choice or not, if I'm dad, I want to know that my kid's going through this. That is now probably gone as a result of the language of this thing. And it didn't matter. It won by a decisive amount. It's coming to Colorado because they want those things. If you'll remember 2012, they wanted weed on the ballot. And by they, I mean the weed people, but it changed probably some of the election outcomes there. And even though we don't have any statewide races on, we do have some congressional races. We might have some other ballot measures. I know Michael, hopefully he'll talk about it today, is going to gin up one that deals with property tax cut for next year. Those kinds of things could be affected by one of these. Let's amend the Constitution kind of changes. Also, Virginia.
Oh, yeah.
Dang. If Glenn Youngkin was thinking about jumping into the presidential race before yesterday, my guess is he isn't now. And it's not a reflection on him, but it will be a reflection on him because dude spent political capital to try to take back the Virginia Senate. They owned the House, which I'm sure they have other terms for it, like the Commonwealth something, because it's Virginia.
Yeah.
They had the House by a seat, and they were going to go after the Senate. At the end of the night, they'd lost both. So now the Democrats basically have the votes necessary to make Glenn Youngkin's last 2 terms in office pretty unproductive.
Yeah, I mean, they get to do whatever they want today. Yeah, it's going to be very difficult. And it sucked all of the air out of the wind in his sails and all the other things that maybe he'll come off the sidelines and save us for the primary. And that's over now.
Oh, yeah, it is.
Yeah.
If you also look at Kentucky,
that's interesting.
Yes.
Really interesting.
Kentucky governor is a guy named Beshear. Now, Andy Beshear is a Dem in a state that Biden lost by 25 points to Trump or something like it. Could have been more. I mean, it was a crushing. He's also one of those governors who went straight on lockdown during the COVID. So there were a lot of reasons to think he was vulnerable. The Republicans put up for this race their elected attorney general, a guy named Daniel Cameron. Got a chance to meet him earlier this year. Charismatic guy. For a lot of reasons was a different kind of candidate for the Republicans too. Conservative, African-American, attorney general, young, dudes in his 30s, young family. This guy had all the boxes that you would check and say, this guy's going to make a strong run at Beshear. At least as it stands right now, he lost by 5 points. 5 points is a good chunk, man. That is not a close race.
Ooh.
That says something about Kentucky. And if you're, by the way, if you're here locally, if you're Phil Weiser, you look at this, and he's a guy that's a big Andy Beshear fan. He wants to follow in Andy Beshear's footsteps. He'd like to be the governor. So you look at that and say, maybe the Dems have a shot. Then you go to Mississippi, where Reeves was on the ropes because of some of the controversy there. If you guys remember, a guy named Brett Favre, who's incredibly impoverished, ended up with like millions of welfare dollars for all sorts of things. That was a huge controversy that impacted the perception of Reeves. He still won. So it wasn't a huge blowout victory kind of a thing, but he won by enough that, I mean, so Mississippi maintains its Republican posture. It's just hard to look out at things nationally, and I need them brought to my attention. So if you guys were out there following stuff, call in and let us know. What are the Republican victories yesterday? What are the big wins? Because these are the big ticket things that I was tracking. Nothing really worked out other than maybe Mississippi.
Yeah, the Kentucky thing is interesting because if you dive a little deeper into Kentucky, Beshear did, basically win that one in a walk-off. And
he did.
To me, again, it is about strength of candidates. And I understand that you're saying that the attorney general checked all the boxes. However, there were some things that I had seen online that he had said in the past that were very strange, that maybe not necessarily tethered to reality, just some impressions about how the world works and things. And that I think that put off some of the Republican voters. And the only reason I say that, and people are, no, they wouldn't do that. Yeah. Well, then someone needs to explain to me how Beshear wins, but then down ballot in Kentucky, Republicans absolutely
What do you think that issue was?
I think it's because I think it's candidate quality.
What do you think Cameron wasn't the guy?
Yeah, there are some things, and I'd have to go back and look, but over the last 6-7 months, I've seen some really questionable things that Cameron has said on the campaign trail and in the past.
I didn't know
some things that you looked at and you went, wait a minute. And the thing is that there were more liberal mouthpieces that I saw trending that on Twitter, because there are a couple of liberal reporters that I follow on the Twitter just because I want to see what they're highlighting, what's important to them. We talk about this all the time off the air, that I go through all of these different media outlets and I talk to you about it.
Yeah.
I find it fascinating how they stack their stories,
right?
Because that tells me what they think is important. So I'm on all sorts of different places. So I get a sampling. And so when they highlight these things, I try to figure out why. I'm going to see who's ringing my bell.
It's Tony. Tony's calling in right now. Our number, which we don't normally give out at this stage of the show for a lot of reasons, is 303-696-1971. Here's some texts that have come in. Bashir needs to replace Biden, hopefully. I don't think so. I don't think you get elected back to governor, reelected, and then announce you're running for president. I don't think that happens. Here, let's see if we can go with Tony. You're on 710 KNUS. Tony, what do you think, man?
Well, a couple things, and it's Kentucky, Virginia, and Ohio.
Yeah, that's right.
All three of those pretty closely.
Yep.
And all three of them really were on right to choose was central to all three, because in the case of Kentucky, he ran an ad that was,
who's he? Is Cameron? Is that the Republican?
Bashir.
Oh, Bashir did.
No,
okay, Bashir did. All right.
Yeah. So the victories in all three locations were really driven around pro-choice and the abortion issue, Dobbs. And so I think there is a big lesson in that, for all of us who are observing politics. It is as important as it was in the midterms, when Democrats typically have low turnout. It's going to be huge in the general, and I'm expecting it to be a big play. And as we look at the polls, these early polls, they're all theoretical right now. So if Trump is your candidate, how does he stack up against Biden? And if Biden is the candidate, how does he stand up? And it's all theoretical. And so, hey, I'd like to have a different candidate instead of Biden. I'd like somebody younger. And same thing kind of said on the Trump side. When I believe that when it comes down to it's this guy against that guy, I don't see one single Trump voter voting for Biden this time. And the guys who voted for Biden in 2020, they're not going to vote for Trump this time. So I see it. Everything is in play kind of the same way, with the exception of this very heated Dobbs issue that's going to have an impact in the 24. So I could see a bit of a tamped down turnout, because people are disgruntled with the old guys.
I get what you're saying, Tony, and that is no Biden voter is going to end up voting for Trump, but they may not vote for Biden. They may just say
and nobody's going to, the Trump guy's not going to vote for Biden, but he may not vote. He may not vote at all.
You're right to highlight the Virginia piece, because, and we didn't talk about this, but you're right. Part of what Youngkin was trying to do was to get majorities in both parts of their legislature, or whatever they call it, because they wanted to pass a bill that had a 15-week abortion ban, which they saw as the compromise. You're right. That issue was the one that the Democrats used to beat back the Republican challenge. In fact, it cost them the House in Virginia. So you're right to point that out.
What he was trying to do, Youngkin was trying to do, was find a way to soften the blow of Dobbs by taking that middle ground, to see if that would maybe work as a message. And then if it did, then there was this theory that maybe he's going to challenge Trump.
Turns out it didn't work.
And now it's like, hey, that middle ground doesn't work either. And just as a point of clarification, I know you like to say that Ohio, they passed a law that, is like up through kindergarten or whatever. And I know it's obviously tongue in cheek. It is viability. They went to viability, which is 22 weeks, right? I mean, that is generally.
Is that the way the language of the amendment reads, Tony?
Yes, to viability.
I'm gonna go take a look too, because I don't want to misstate that. So,
well, I know you're kidding when you say I know you're kidding, but
that's Colorado.
It's viability. It is viability here as well.
It's here. It's all the way up through. Actually, it's 8th grade, I think, here in Colorado. Tony, great phone call. Thanks for focusing us on that. That is correct. And that actually highlights something else we'd been talking about, but I just didn't put the connection together on the other ones the way Tony did. Tony, thanks for that. That's right, man. The pro-choice issue was one that permeated. I didn't realize it had been a big deal in the Kentucky race either, but maybe that's one of those things Billy was talking about when he said, hey, that Cameron dude said some things that got him crossways with some of the unaffiliateds and the moderates. I don't know. Listen, here's what I want to do. I want to cut away for a break, not before I tell you about Gay Ribble and the Empower Home team. By the way, I just saw, I'm not on Facebook very much, but I just saw that I had a friend request from Gay Ribble. And I was like, oh, that's so very cool. She is such a great person and a good person in her heart. She makes me want to be a better person, and also makes me realize the gap between me and a better person. Like, oh my good Lord, there's a lot of things I got to improve upon, but she's got it figured out. not just in her own life, not just in her own heart, but in her profession. She's the top of the list. If you're looking for anybody out there to handle this most important purchase or sale that you're ever going to have in your life, most likely, because you and I aren't rich, you want to trust somebody who's a good person, who you know has a set of values and principles that match your own. That's Gay Ribble and the Empower Home team with Keller Williams. Look, with this Sell with Certainty program, I like to read the words they picked, because that's what's important. Gay Ribble will guarantee to sell your home at 100% of your asking price, or she will pay you the difference in cash. That's just what wonderful words. Gay Ribble will guarantee to sell your home at 100% of your asking price, or she will pay you the difference in cash. That's all you need to know. You can check them out at gayhasthebuyers.com. You can also check them out at sellwithcertaintycolorado.com, sellwithcertaintycolorado.com. Or better yet, just talk to one of the great people that work there. 833-301-SOLD, 833-301-SOLD. That's Gay Ribble. Hey, when we come back, we're going to get to the good stuff. That's the Thorpe Report with our guy BT. And then, of course, the You Choose the News. Stick around. On a Victory Wednesday, George Brauchler, 710 KNUS. Little end to the Vonna. George Brauchler right back with you here on 710 KNUS. It's that time we get to be made smarter on all the local news, not the election stuff I imagine we talked about, but some of the other cool things that were going on in the metro area and state of Colorado. It is now time for the Thorpe Report with our highness, Billy
you.
T.
I don't know if I'm supposed to curtsy at this point. I don't know.
I'd like to see it.
Yes. And on a side note, we were talking about cool stuff. Check out Conan O'Brien's podcast.
Oh,
where
yeah.
He's talking with Dave Grohl, Chris Novoselic, and Steve Albini, who's a producer for In Utero. It's the 30th anniversary. The stories they tell
by the way,
are fascinating. And the producer, Steve Albini, on the album, Nirvana's the biggest band in the world. He gave them a list of demands in order to work on the next album, In Utero.
wow.
Who does that?
Yeah.
And then they
That
talk
takes
about
guts.
why Albini, why Pat Smear of the Germs joins the band. It is absolutely fascinating. One of the most amazing emotional conversations is when Dave Grohl recounts the conversation he has with one of his daughters in the car and he says, in the house, we don't play Nirvana music. It's not a rule, but it just doesn't happen. They're in the car, a Nirvana song comes up, and his daughter turns to him and says, Dad, what was Kurt like?
Oh, wow.
It's an amazing
Wow.
conversation. So,
Wow.
yeah, do yourself a favor.
Conan
if you're a Nirvana
O'Brien.
fan. Yeah, Conan O'Brien's podcast. All righty. Let's get to the good news and bad news. We got another fast-moving blast of winter taking aim at Colorado. Could bring rain, maybe even a little bit of snow. Here in town early today, it'll be dry. We'll see increasing clouds throughout the day today. Spotty showers early by tomorrow and by tomorrow afternoon. Could get some more winds. Chance for rain and snow to stick throughout the evening tonight into tomorrow. Mostly foothills if we're going to have any accumulation. And, of course, up in the high country. Now, as we talked about, Proposition HH did not pass. Little spirit dance.
Big
little
time.
dance in here. Oh, it's fantastic. Colorado voters also approved Proposition 2, approving additional funding for universal pre-kindergarten programs. Mike Coffman is going to beat down Juan Marcano, which is absolutely fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
Yep, as we talked about out in Douglas County, nail biter on 2 ballot measures, 5A and goes up, 5B looks like it's going down. And the board member races for the school board.
Tough.
Very
Tough.
weird. Yeah. 3 out of the 4 ballot questions in Parker were passing, and 2 Castle Pines ballot measures are both passing, and as of the last update, and that would increase sales tax by 1% to improve the roads there. Town of Littleton improves a measure to retain and spend existing revenue on neighborhood improvements. So things like that are happening. Elsewhere, as we look around, a jury has found Robin Nicetta, former Arapahoe County social worker, guilty of both felony attempt to influence a public servant and misdemeanor false reporting of child abuse. Verdict came down yesterday afternoon after closing arguments were made earlier in the day. Prosecution asked for personal recognizance bond, changed to $10,000 cash bond. Sentencing January 19th at 11 a.m. Very interesting. That was a quick result.
That's a big one. Sadly, it gets her through the holidays, so she doesn't have to go into the WHO scale. Her bigger problem is coming up, and that's the lied about the brain tumor case. That case carries more potential prison by a truckload than this one. This one carries up to 6. Also, our buddy Stephen Tubbs, formerly of 710, was in the courtroom both days. You saw him on TV.
Yeah, he was in. There's a montage. I think it was Channel 31 I'm watching, and they're doing this montage after the verdict. And it's interesting because I play this game about what B-roll do we have in storage, because when you see the same clip running over and over again, it means the station doesn't have a lot of B-roll. So they had some early walk-ins, and I was looking for you to see if they had the walk-in with
that
you.
horrible one from like a year ago.
No, it wasn't. That didn't have one. They had other walk-ins that were going. But then when they were talking about the jurors, and right before they went to a quick interview with the juror, they had the juror talking to some reporter in a doorway. And that reporter was Stephen Tubbs. Yes, in a very nice blue and white shirt.
It looked like he had actually gotten cleaned up a little bit from his radio time, which is great.
I mean, he was wearing pants.
Big victory. Danielle, very happy. I did not realize the case. She was on yesterday's. You know, we're going to have her on again this morning to talk about what took place in the courtroom. Fascinating stuff. Interesting about the bond. We'll tell you how actually the setting of that bond helps Danielle.
Really?
Of all things. Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, very interesting story.
Good. Now I've got some bad news here. We've got a Senior Boulder student currently fighting for his life after he took a pill to help him sleep. That pill was laced with fentanyl.
Oh, for God's sake.
Again, dude wasn't going out there to go party.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So again, it's awful. And nearly 2 years after the Marshall Fire, Excel Energy has announced deployment of 21 wildfire detection cameras statewide. It's a partnership with a San Francisco-based company. They're already operating in Boulder County. 18 more to come by the end of the year. That's all I got.
Interesting, buddy. That's great. Listen, we have enough time to do a couple things. One is for me, and I never get to do this in the 6 o'clock hour. That's why I've made a concerted effort to do it. That's to tell our wonderful 6 o'clock listeners about a guy named Mitch Floria. He is the purveyor of the art of granite. Mitch, wonderful dude. Billy and I are working to get him here back in the studio. He comes on maybe once a year. I wish it was more than that, but about once a year, give us the story about his background and also what's going on great with his company. That company is the one that makes the interior of your house awesomer. Whether it's the kitchen counter, the bathroom counter, or maybe that finished basement counter that you're putting in. This guy is all about countertops, and he is the best at it. This dude's like the Peyton Manning of countertops. Go out and check him out at his location there at 6th Avenue in Colfax-ish. See what they can do with the God-made stuff. That's your granite, that's your marbles. But the quartz stuff, that's man-made stuff. They can bend this stuff to your will to come up with almost anything that you can possibly imagine. Check him out, too, online at theartofgranite.com, theartofgranite.com. You can also give him a call on a cell phone at 303-386-5919, 303-386-5919. You make sure you remind him you're a George listener on 710 KNUS. Guy does more than the wholesale prices everyone else gets. He'll throw in the bathroom countertop for free with your kitchen countertop package, or if you're just doing the one room, he'll throw in the sink for free. That's the Art of Granite. Stephen Tubbs hitting me right now on texts with a bunch of pictures. He made it to the Aurora event I was at last night. I had bailed by then because, of course, one of us had to get up early and not wake up in some strange place. He's there with, all the Aurora City Council folks. There's Francoise. There's new elect Stephanie Hancock. Really great pictures. And honestly, Stephen looks, from this angle, mostly sober, which is super awesome. Hey, stick around. We're going to get to the good stuff. That's the You Choose the News. It's George Brauchler, 710 KNUS. George Brauchler back with you here, 710 KNUS. No time to waste. was going to say lose, but then it keeps rhyming with the choose. Let's get it to Billy for You Choose the News.
Thank you, sir. Yes, it's that time of the morning where we get to play everybody's favorite fake radio news game show. You Choose the News. We have spent mere moments this morning scouring the interwebs for really stupid stories about us humans and giving them even dumber headlines because the people in charge have no idea we do this every morning. And they pay us for it. I know. I'm so confused, just like you. Alrighty, sir. Here are your headlines this morning. Headline number 1, if only we had developed an alternative technology. Headline number 2, best field trip ever. Headline number 3, behold the power of a safety corridor. And headline number 4, why assume higher bills equals better service?
Field trip.
Alrighty, best field trip ever. Yes, that is what the kids in St. Louis may be able to experience soon. The students at South City are actually protesting what could be the best school field trip ever. Why? Well, because Kind Goods Recreational Dispensary wants to put in a location right across the street from the school. Now, in deference to the young elementary school, they did cancel their plans for a drive-through because that seemed awkward. But they still want to be able to sell the happy weed stuff near the school. People are protesting, and they said, hey, maybe we shouldn't do this. Wait, isn't there a Missouri law that requires you be at least 1,000 feet between dispensaries and schools? Yes, but the proud people of St. Louis and the people in charge decided that would be dumb, so they opted out of that law. So they decided just put the dispensaries wherever. Oddly enough, the real fun part is that there's a variety store that sits right across the street from the academy. It is owned by a relative of the school's executive director, and it is called Globe Drugs. But no, so far, does not sell the marijuana. I just think that's funny.
Foreshadowing, perhaps.
Yes, exactly. All right, second choice. If only we had developed alternative technology, power of a safety corridor, or higher bills equal better service.
Higher bills equal better service.
Why would you possibly assume that, especially if you live in Texas? You're familiar with how well their Texas power grid is working. They're just killing tens of people every year, maybe dozens with it, but that's okay. The Texas power grid operator wants more money. They want to increase their budget by 40%. Yes, the average resident in Texas is going to have to pay more. And is this going to fix their grid, make sure in the cold months they can actually get heat? No, not at all. The Texas Power Grid Company wants to spend this money on more lawyers and public relations.
What?
Yes, the Texas Power Grid operator wants to do a 40% budget increase, and it is earmarked
good use of money,
for lawyers and PR, not to actually fix the system.
So awesome. Fend off lawsuits and to look good. I like it.
Exactly. That's what they want, and you're going to pay 40% more for that.
Beautiful.
That's wonderful. Your dollars in action. All right, alternative technology or safety corridor?
Tech.
All right, if only we had developed an alternative technology. That is what elementary schools across our country are struggling with right now, because Pactive Evergreen of Lake Forest, Illinois says they're having supply chain issues and higher than projected demand, so we're not going to have any of the milk cartons in our lunchrooms. Pactive and Evergreen is the largest producer of those little tiny half-pint cartons of milk that we all struggle to open with our little tiny fingers when we were in the lunch cafeteria room. And they're having a problem sourcing them. So now elementary schools across the nation are trying to find alternative delivery services. Some people are saying, couldn't we just put it in a bottle? That seems dumb. Actually, in California, they're looking at bulk milk dispensers, which I think is just training them for college parties and keggers, which, again, it's a skill. Maybe you go with a boxed wine type of idea. It's just one big box of it.
Boxed wine.
I know. I don't know what it is, but if only we could figure out how to get the little kids the milk, because God knows we don't have anything other than those little tiny cartons. Back to you. That's all I got, sir. That's the
Buddy, fantastic. We got to get to some advertisers at some point on the You Choose the News. We just haven't done it. Listen, stick around. In studio coming up next. His name's Art Acevedo. Badge, gun, you, me. George Brauchler, 710 KNUS. Welcome back to hour number 2 of 4 of the George Show on 710 KNUS. At 10 o'clock, we get replaced by a guy named Charlie Kirk. Did you say something, Billy?
My mic's on?
Yeah, so
right.
everyone just heard
Stop
that
breathing.
voice right
Stop
there.
breathing heavy into it.
That is.
I was just letting you know.
Is that what you're trying to tell me? Hey, I'm old and it's the
Oh,
altitude. It's
sweet
the altitude.
goodness. Well, I was going to say a whole bunch of things about who's going to follow us after the 10, but who cares at this point?
Charlie Kirk.
In Charlie Kirk, bunch of other people. There's some sort of a presidential debate tonight. Helping to host that will be our next guest, Art Acevedo, Chief of Police for Aurora. I don't know how your name got picked out of that hat, but what questions are you going to ask the candidates?
Let's see. Where's my tax break for next year? And there's one tonight.
Yeah, pretty sure there's one tonight, just based off of things I've seen on TV.
Is that the one in Miami?
I think it is Miami, your old stomping grounds.
Yeah, I must make sure you bring your passport when you go into that southern Florida quagmire swamp.
I also mispronounced a city last night. I said Doral, and you were like,
Yeah,
and then you go, you could call it
Doral,
but you can call it. I'm like, thank you for that, because that would have been awful. I'd have stood up in front of this group of police officers and said, I love being here in Doral, like, being in Detroit and saying, I love Cleveland. Or
what
something
time are you
like
speaking?
That. It's like an all-day training thing out in the middle of December. Yeah.
Yeah, you'll have a good time. That's a good small department.
I heard that they have good resources.
Yeah, they've got money.
Yeah, they're like the Lone Tree.
I mean, if you look at the cost of living in South Florida, all the governments have money there. It is a very expensive place to live.
Yeah, right.
More expensive than here.
Well, listen, let's talk about here. I saw you last night at JJ's. That's Councilwoman Jurinsky's establishment, bar/restaurant, one of them anyway. And you were there, I think, for a whole bunch of reasons, not the least of which is the leadership. Much of the leadership of Aurora was on the ballot. How do you feel like it turned out?
You know what? I think that for the people that win, there's winners and losers. They're happy. And I think it'll be just fine.
For a guy that has to curry just a little bit of favor with the city council and the mayor, probably more with the city manager. But what a perfect answer. There were winners and losers, and the winners won and the losers didn't. And I think it's all going to work out.
I should run for office. I think I'd fit right in.
You would. And based on last night, you'd have probably done pretty well. We're going to have Mayor Mike on in the 8 o'clock hour to do a little bit of a victory dance and talk about why it was such a blowout victory at the mayor race. But there were 3 questions I had mentioned to you when we were out in the hallway that I wanted to ask you about, because they're cop questions, right? There were 3 things on the ballot. All of them passed, and by a truckload. Tell me what they were. There's 3 B, C, and D. Do you remember what each one is?
Yeah, well, I don't remember which is which, but I can speak to it. First, I want to thank the voters for voting overwhelmingly in support of that. I think that public safety is not a partisan issue. It is everyone wants to be safe. Right. The only ones that don't want to be safe are the people that are activists that don't understand.
And Hamas, but go on.
Okay. So the one of them gives me an opportunity, the authority, the citizens of this community just voted to give the police department the authority, the police chief, to bypass an individual for promotion. In other words, if I've got a reason to bypass somebody, because promotion, we can't not have an entitlement attitude. I took a test, therefore my past performance should not matter, right?
Oh, yeah.
Past performance is the best indicator of future performance. And
so hold on, what's the system right now before this change?
The system, I think it's at 2 years. If 2 years have passed, no matter what the misconduct was, there's nothing I can do. But and the important part is there is due process to have the opportunity to appeal to the Civil Service Commission, and the Civil Service Commission will say whether they believe that I had a reason to bypass somebody. It's not something I want to use, unless there's a reason, or particular reason. So that's really huge. Because we need to send a message to our workforce that if you want to go up the organization, your performance needs to matter.
And inflexibility in any aspect of personnel management is a formula for disaster.
No, it is. So the FOP was, they didn't want it to pass, but you know what? I think you can't complain about leadership. You can't complain about the people going up the chain and then not have tools that, when appropriate, that you can bypass folks. It's kind of like I believe in the rights for police officers, because before police officers had any rights, they were a political arm. And think about the civil rights movement and the photos of police officers using cane to basically attack peaceful protesters.
Yep.
Was that really the police officers wanting to do that? Or was that the police officers that had no rights back in the day? That, hey, you work for us, you do what we, for the hell with the Constitution, the law, or anything else, you do what we say. Then the other one has a formula that when the city gets to a certain population, or the department gets a certain population, I have the authority to ask for additional assistant chiefs positions, deputy chiefs positions.
Well, how does it work now?
It's capped right now. So
regardless of what happens with the city,
it's capped. It's actually in charter. So if the city grew the way it's anticipated to grow to 700,000 people with 1,500 cops or whatever, we'd have to go back and try to have a charter amendment. So this actually creates a formula for natural growth when needed, and it still has to be authorized.
These just seem like common sense things. Why is it taking this long to get here?
Well, you didn't have Artie Acevedo here. And, no, I'm kidding. That's not who's not in his first rodeo. No, I just think that they hadn't really looked at the charter in quite a while, and we have a thoughtful council. And quite honestly, the entire council across the political spectrum supported that measure. And then the third measure gives me the ability to add 3 commander positions.
Wasn't there one too? I'm trying to read it as we're talking, but there's one that talks about removing the limits on the number of lateral police and fire hirings.
Yes.
Allow for earlier promoting eligibility for police laterals.
Yes.
So this one. Okay, now tell me about this. I think I know why this is going on. Like, policing today feels very differently than it did 20 years ago.
It's very different. People come and go. When I became a cop in 1986 with California Highway Patrol, I never thought I'd leave the CHP. And
by the way, I'm sorry we didn't have your Chips music queued up when you got in here.
Yeah, I mean, Eric Estrada was really pretty disappointed. No, I'm kidding. That was the beginning of the show. But anyway, so officers would stay for 20, 30 years, make it a career. But society's different. Police officers across the country, those younger people, stay for about 5 or 6 years, and hey, that looks pretty cool over there with it, and they move on. So we have to be a little bit more creative. The competition is fierce for bodies, and it's not just in law enforcement. It's not just in fire. It is just in society right now. And the job market is really good for people looking for a job. And so that gives us the ability to be able to compete. And we have to get the positions, the bodies from wherever we can find them. And that gives us that ability. So
I hope that things are improving the post George Floyd era, but I know that that's taken a hit on recruiting. And you and I talked last night, just briefly. I told you I'd met with the chief of police for Arvada. Great dude, Ed Brady, great guy. I've known Ed since we both started in law enforcement. He looks the same, by the way. He still looks 14. He was like 21 Jump Street. I look like Ed's dad. But Ed was saying, hey, listen, I'm down 30. And that's not a big department. That's not an Aurora.
No.
How many folks are you still trying to get into the process here through lateral or otherwise?
We want to get anywhere from 30 to 40 of every class. So the first class, again, thanks to this consent decree, is really a tool that gives us an opportunity to do things we might not be able to do otherwise. We actually now have the ability to recruit our own folks, process them, leverage the entire city organization. So the first class that we recruited had 35 in it, 33 basic recruits, 2 lateral recruits, and that class will be graduating. When do they graduate? In March, right? I think they graduate in March. We have a class in January scheduled to start, and that one we think we're on track to have 30 to 35. If we keep that rhythm moving forward, that pace, we're going to be in really good shape in about 12 to 18 months. And the other thing is that, we're about to hopefully announce a new work schedule for next year. That, we've had
Fridays off? I mean, just lawless Fridays? Or?
Fridays off. No, not really. But it is, we have to look at the job market. We have to look at what other departments are doing. And we have to make sure that we're being creative. Because one of the things I know about this generation is that younger folks want a work-life balance. And again, it's
a term I had never heard before this generation.
I mean,
I'd heard there was work, and that's how you paid for life. Peace.
Work.
These younger guys and gals, I get it. I heard it when I was the DA. I'd hear that too. Like, I've already put in 50 hours this week. And I'm
50
like,
hours,
why
that's
are you
warm up.
slacking? You know what I mean? Like, what's going on? And they're like, but I want to go for a walk. I'm like,
Yeah.
can't you walk around the office?
See, I mean, it's like when I was a young sergeant in East LA, briefing was 1:45. I was usually B watch, which is swings or graveyard. Briefing was from 45 on the hour to the hour, right? And by about 5 after, if I saw you in that building, that station, go, hey man, you need a map?
Yeah, what's going on?
To your beat.
Why aren't you out there, dude?
Go.
Yeah.
And God forbid I found you at the pumps too early. It's like people want to come in like 2 hours early. I'm not talking about Aurora PD. Our guys and men are hardworking, but it's just a different world sometimes.
It is. So how are you managing that with this new schedule for the work-life balance generation Zs?
I think we can't talk about it just yet, but
it's a secret.
Yeah, we're not quite there. We should hopefully be there by the end of the week or by Thursday, which is tomorrow. But I think it's the funny thing is that not everybody's going to be happy because that's just the world we live in. But I think that the majority of our men and women will be very happy.
I'm not asking you to be political, but I'm asking you because you get out in the community probably more than even the folks that have run for office, just because of the day-to-day work that you do. Aurora may be the most diverse city in America outside of Brooklyn, New York. It's up there, right? Just based on, and it's a very pro-immigrant community. Like it recruits these, Somalis, Eritreans, Ethiopians. I mean, it's just hugely diverse. Not a Republican stronghold, as Billy said in the 6 o'clock. How is it that this voter populace turns out the way it does in favor of law enforcement and in favor of the candidates and mayor that it did? And again, it's not a political thing. I'm asking, what are the things that are going on out there that are driving these folks?
I didn't really follow the debate here, the issues they were debating, but I can just tell you, having been in a public service for my entire adult life, right, since 21, I was the youngest guy in my class, is that public safety, it matters. Public safety is an issue that matters to people that are progressive, people that are conservative, people that are moderates, libertarian. People want to feel safe. People want to be safe. And think about the places a lot of these immigrants come from. I'm an immigrant myself, right? They come from places where there's lawlessness. They come from places where...
I don't think Miami counts, by the way.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. I think that's still Cuba. That's part of the problem. Some of those...
Maybe it does count that.
Yeah. Well, I immigrated from Miami back to the United States last year or 2 years ago. But I just think that that's a big issue. I try to tell folks, when you use the word socialism, they don't understand that when you use the word socialism, I explain it to folks. Talk about what your specific policy position is. Yeah. Don't label it, because people from Nicaragua, El Salvador, the African continent, they fled that. Venezuela. I can just go on down the line.
That's a good point.
It is just messaging matters, words matter, and people don't seem to understand that. So I'm not a politician, but I'm in the people business. I know people. And some of these words that folks use are just not the labels.
That's smart to think in terms of where did these folks come from, especially for Aurora. It probably matters more for Aurora than it does Cherry Hills.
Yeah, I mean, so it's it's not like when you go around saying defund the police. I hate to say that. That's not a very good slogan.
That was not a winning message.
When you say abolish ICE, I remember actually telling Nancy Pelosi that in person in Houston.
Oh, really?
Which is the speaker. Come on, speaker. May I ask you a question? What's that? And by the way, Houston is the most diverse big city in the country.
Oh, is it?
Oh, it is. It's.
But imagine
Aurora
they're big compared to Aurora. Like Aurora's like a mall in Houston.
Oh, Aurora's like a neighborhood over there. I mean, the Houston area is just
giant.
That region's got the population of the state of Colorado. It's
oh my goodness.
But it's a great place. I love it. I love it here. I mean, it's just I just love the urban environment. And I said, just out of curiosity, who are your messengers? Who creates your messages? Because let me just tell you, this abolish ICE scares white America, Black America, Hispanic America, undocumented immigrant America, because the victims of bad actors that are coming over undocumented, they disproportionately target immigrants. They disproportionately, that's who they target. And I say, if you want to say focus ICE on violent offenders first that are undocumented before you go after day laborers, everybody gets that. But when you say abolish ICE, that is not a good slogan.
No, that's not a slogan for safety.
And then it was funny is that like a few days later, I see her in a news program, I'm watching TV, and Oh, no. We don't want to apologize. Actually, listen.
You changed the speaker, the then speaker.
Well, I don't know if I changed her, but I can just tell you it might have been happenstance. But I do the same thing to the Republican part, conservative. You got to be thoughtful. Talk about what you're trying to accomplish, right? And what we want to try to accomplish in law enforcement is keeping people safe.
We're talking with Chief Art Acevedo from the Aurora PD. Someone had texted in right as the show was kicking off. I read it to you. They said, "Hey, is he still the interim, or have we made him a real boy?"
Every chief is interim. That's the most replaceable person.
That's a
in
good
any
point.
Department.
But is there some formal thing that has to take place? You get all gussied up and get a knee, and then they take you down to Westminster Abbey. And
no, this is Aurora. I mean, we got stuff to
something.
Do. In other places when they
swear
the when they swear in the chief, in other places they have bagpipers, everything else.
Yeah.
Here it's like, hey, come on in. Raise your hand. Okay, have a good day.
Right.
We gotta get back to work
in the middle of business. Like we need to take a 5-minute break.
Council, yeah, that's great. I think that Jason Batchelor, who's the city manager, West Point grad, a great guy. I love that
Army
guy.
dude means he's a good person.
He's a good dude, and he went to think about West Point, the leaders in this nation's history that have walked those grounds.
Oh yeah,
I went there when I was 13 years old. My brother-in-law was like a dad to me. And
such a cool place to visit out there, right off the Hudson like that. Amazing. Really nice.
My nephew graduated from West Point, and it's just going to that graduation was just really a cool thing to do. But he's the sole finalist for city manager, to be the city manager permanent.
Do you think he's going to get it?
That's usually what the sole finalist means.
It seems like if you lose that race,
are you Army, Air Force, or you're starting to sound like a Marine right about now? In case
that's Kellner.
Les Kellner's listening, but. He's got it. I think he needs to be permanent first.
Yeah. And then after that, they'll talk to you about the special. Does anything change if you become permanent? Does it change your pay? Do you get access to the executive washroom? I mean, what's the deal?
We got to figure that out.
Because, hello. Now I think we've got it. Free agent Art Acevedo for the Aurora PD.
It's like coaching, right? I mean, Sean Payton didn't come back just for kicks and giggles, right? As a matter of fact, we were so hopeful, weren't we?
Oh, buddy, listen. They could win out and go 11-5 and be a wild card team.
Yeah,
but that's not going to happen.
We could not have any snow this year. Either.
Yeah, unlikely. They're talking about it maybe even as early as today. Nobody knows if the meteorology thing is like reading tea leaves.
But the weather's been spectacular. God, the weather's been great.
This El Nino thing, I can't figure out. I asked Billy because he said, "Hey, we're headed for some giant El Nino thing," and I guess you can predict on the East Coast what that means and on the West Coast, but here nobody has any idea.
El Nino is we'll see Nino whether it shows up or not.
Yeah, well, it's supposed to be some sort of a big thing. Billy's probably back there working on his vape pen, but which I just got him. I thought, he needs something to do during the interview.
That's a really nice thing.
I want to do this. I want to cut away for a break. When we come back, if you're able to stick around for a break, do you have to go? Okay.
No,
I'd like to talk with you about some of the stuff we've talked about in the past. I want to talk about, if you have them, what are we seeing with crime trends, different things. Okay. I had the opportunity to sit in a Denver Police Foundation retreat yesterday and had a chance to talk to Chief Thomas up the road.
Ron's a good man.
And my guess is, as chief, you guys probably have some similar issues that you're dealing with, and he gave us some information about what's going on in Denver. I just kind of want to see if this is a regional trend, or is it something that we're doing differently or seeing differently than Denver is? So if you'll stick around, we will get to that right there. Hey, it is Chief Art Acevedo. He is the interim, whatever that means, Aurora Police Chief, in studio today. If you've got questions, I'm not even going to ask him. If you have questions, give a call, 303-696-1971. Try to stump the chief. You can use math or any other questions about the law. It's Stump the Chief Day here on the George Show, 710 KNUS. George Brauchler back with you here, 710 KNUS studio. Of course, Chief Art Acevedo text coming in. Please ask Chief Acevedo, apologies if I misspelled, that's okay.
That's okay.
If he is in agreement with most other law enforcement folks that think an assault weapons ban is needed. Thank you. Good show.
Well, you know what? I'm a realist in terms of what we can and can't accomplish. I'm not sure that that we can accomplish politically a ban, but I think we can do a much better job of ensuring that people that have access to them can buy them, go through a robust background in terms of a universal background check and things of that nature. The Major State Chiefs Police Association, where I was the president for 3 years, which is the 79 largest in the country, 69 largest in the United States, 9 largest in Canada. Their position paper, their actual position that they took is calling for a reinstitution of the ban. So that's the police chief's
Up in
position.
Canada.
Here, Major State Chiefs of the Association.
They're
of the
asking
United
for
States.
the ban to be reinstated.
That's been the association's position. When we actually had that debate, I said, look, we've got to be realistic. What can we accomplish? I think we need to look at what we can accomplish. And I think that with universal background checks, taking care of the gun show loophole where some folks can just go there and buy out guns without background checks.
Yeah, listen, I'm a background check guy. If we're going to say keep guns out of the wrong hands, don't we have to see who has the wrong hands?
Yeah, look, it's and I really believe from my heart of hearts that gun ownership and rights come responsibility. You know, and if we don't exercise our rights responsibly, we end up losing our rights. You protect the Second Amendment by, instilling these policies that the majority of the American people support across the political aisle. And I think that that's a real problem because eventually, it happened before, it could happen again. I think that eventually the American people will just blow up and some of the.
What's your sense of, I can't remember if I asked you this before or not, but the legislature, and we're going to get to them in a second here, the legislature, in 2 consecutive sessions, passed laws that allowed for the rearming of convicted felons, including convicted drug dealers and car thieves.
Yeah.
Thoughts on that?
You know what? This is really interesting because people think I'm an anti-Second Amendment guy. I think that if it's automatic, that's a problem. But I do believe that at some point when you lose your rights, that there should be a process by which you can have them restored, right?
Like a gladiator process or like some sort of a Running Man thing?
Yeah, it's like, look, it's like, felons are supposed to, if you're convicted of a felony, you're supposed to not be able to vote for the rest of your life. I just think that.
We don't do that here. Once you kill off your sentence, that right to vote comes back.
Yeah, I just think that when you pay the price, that certain things. So, I've got, it depends on the certain.
If that's the case, what's the point of the background check?
Well, so I'll give you an example. Let's say that you do something really, you commit a crime at the age of 19 or 20.
Sure.
You go to, well, you're not going to go, chances of going to prison are very slim
right
now, unfortunately, for some folks. But you come out and for 10 years, you get your life together. We actually restored that individual. You're gainfully employed, you pay your taxes, you go to work, and you've got that 10 years later, maybe you should be able to restore your.
Well, listen, you and I can agree on this then, because I think our system right now creates way too easy a permanence as an automatic thing. Now, I am happy to have people be convicted felons, but I do like the idea that we set up a system where you can earn your way to a place where you get that second look and someone comes back and says, okay,
completely
you
agree.
Don't need to be a convicted felon anymore because you've proven that was a one-off or whatever it was that led you to those events. You're way past that now.
You know what, George, I completely agree. I think that, if we want to change behavior, we have to incentivize it a little bit, right?
Yeah. That's right.
You know what, because people like to go hunting. People like to do legitimate things. They might want it for their home for self-protection. But this automatic thing that like we did here, that's not, I don't think that's
But
wise.
we're also a society that's based on the idea of forgiveness and rehabilitation and people being able to get back to it. So I could get down with that. It's just a process of how do we get there?
Just like when in Texas, where I was there for 15 years as police chief, we were arguing about getting a little cheek swab for certain misdemeanors.
For the DNA stuff.
The peeping toms and stuff.
Yeah.
And one of the things that because I wanted to get it done, because today's peeping Tom's usually tomorrow's sex assault
Yep.
suspect, right?
Sure.
I said, let's do this. Let's instead of you have to have it removed out of the system, if for 10 years you're not committing a criminal offense, then automatically your DNA profile comes out. I think there's ways to get things done if it's give and take and just a little common sense. So because if you have to go to court to do it, that costs people money. A lot of people don't have money. I can just go on down the line. So I think when we have these political debates, the extremism is on whether it's too extreme right or extreme left. Because like I guys like Kevin McCarthy, I've known forever. I tell these folks is, look, you've got conservative, you've got moderates, and then you've got progressives.
I mean, progressives, sorry.
Well, progressives. For me, I can deal with policies in that along that spectrum.
Yeah.
But when you go left of progressive and right of conservative, and I'm talking about extremes of those sides, you got bat done crazy. And you can't do enough to please people like that.
Living it. Let me read you another text here. I would like the chief to explain why chronic campers on public and private lands are not given escalating citations that culminate to jail time at a certain level for all the attendant violations for trespassing, shoplifting, open drug use, public intoxication, and defecation. What a crappy thing to say. My hope would be that jail time interrupts their ability to get their drugs, which may be the only way to motivate a change in behavior or at least location. It also gives much better leverage to get them into treatment.
Boy, that's a handful there.
Also, I should point out, and Billy, you can back me up on this. Usually when you're in here, we have driven by a large encampment right there at about, not so that I've seen, not the last couple times that we've been out here. So whatever you're doing is working. Yeah.
And then this is an area around here in Parker where there's different jurisdictions. So we're trying to do a better job of actually coordinating with one another and having a more comprehensive look at some of those campsites. The RVs, if you go to Los Angeles, you'll be thinking, maybe we don't have that much of a problem here.
Really?
It's horrible. But the defecation, council passed an ordinance on that for the people that defecate on somebody's property. The camper issue, there's something in the works right now to strengthen that further. And I'm not sure it's going to end up going to jail, but the towing them and getting them out, impounding them is going to be a big part of that. And then the department that really handles that is one of our sister agencies and
city councils.
The city council. But but that's something that is being addressed through ordinances.
I know you want to talk about the legislature. Just before we get there, let me just recap for folks that have been following the Elijah McClain cases. There were 5 individuals indicted by the Attorney General after a Change.org petition reached about 4.5 million for the governor. Nonetheless, 2 of those officers were tried, Officers Rodema and Rosenblatt. Rosenblatt was acquitted of all the charges. Rodema convicted of criminally negligent homicide and misdemeanor 3rd-degree assault. My understanding is Rodema, convicted felon, he's terminated. He's not going to be a police officer anymore. I don't know what that process is, but that's my guess. He won't be a police officer anymore.
Yeah.
Rosenblatt had already been terminated for post Elijah McClain conduct. That's the only thing I can think of to say the picture and stuff.
Yeah.
But Officer Woodyard, who was acquitted this week, what procedurally, not without getting it all into the substance, what procedurally happens with an officer in that situation?
Well, under the charter, if they're acquitted, they have a right to return to the work. I mean, that is the law. That's what the rules we have to follow, and they're entitled to their back salary, whatever their salary was at the lost
for that entire period of time.
Yes, for the time that they were under indictment.
Wow.
So
that's a big check.
Yeah. So if you'll have to go through an reintegration process, we'll have to do updated psych, we'll have to do updated background to make sure nothing happened. You never know what went on in those 2 years. And then they have the right to be reinstated.
Interesting. Let's get to the legislature. There are some things coming up in front of you that you probably don't want to see and some things you'd like to see. What's going on?
Well, I think that first thing that's going on is that as Coloradans, we need to pay attention to what's going on in legislation. You know what happened last year is that they wanted to make it where you couldn't charge anyone under the age of 13 with any crime other than murder, which I think would be such a disservice to the young kids that are being targeted by older youth and by adults to carry out a lot of these violent crimes and a lot of these crimes. So that's one that I have a feeling will come back. And
oh my gosh, the one that's like, we're going to invite you to a meeting with your parents, and if you don't show up, then we're going to punish you by inviting you to another meeting with your parents.
Exactly right. And especially in some instances, the parents may be part of the problem. They're actually, you know, I remember one case in Houston where we had in one of our investigative offices, I mean, a wall with about 30 youth offenders and about 4 adults that were parents that actually they were
running the show.
You nailed it. And so, you know, we have to have tools to get these kids out of those environments, because if we don't, we're in essence, eventually you live by the sword, you die by the sword. You're sentencing them to death. The other thing that is really important, and I actually whispered to one of the members of the Senate yesterday, State Senate, what is the fact that they will not share with us geolocations of violent youthful offenders. They want to share it with us.
What?
When we have a law enforcement purpose, we have a need for public safety for the ankle monitors. It is a problem.
They won't share that with law enforcement.
Oh, it's nearly impossible. And so, you know, you've got to keep these kids. You got to save them from themselves, but we also have to save other people from some of these offenders. And we had a case not too long ago where a pretty violent kid involved with a lot of really nefarious activity. There was a fear that he had a gun in school. He disappeared. We're trying to find him. We're trying to get we're trying to get their location based on their ankle monitor, and good luck trying to get it. So there's a lot of things we need to work on. I'm hopeful that we'll be able to, with the Colorado Chiefs Association, keep the public informed, because again, public safety is a universal desire.
Yeah.
And it disproportionately impacts communities of color when it's crime
sure,
across the country. I'm not sure what community it doesn't, unless it's, like West Virginia or up in the mountains or something where you just don't have that many people from minority communities. But at the end of the day, I can tell you, like the defund the police movement, don't be coming down to the 5th Ward, 3rd Ward, Sunnyside in Houston. You tell the community there you're going to defund the police, which predominantly African American, they'll take, get out of here. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
We want our officers. We want police visibility. Yeah. Now, we don't want to be harassed. We don't. We want good policing, but we certainly
we don't want Lord of the Flies out here in the neighborhoods. Yeah.
And we don't want individuals that have a history of committing violence, convictions of committing violence, shooting a kid with an AR-15 out of all things in one of the apartment complexes, goes in one door, comes out the other, and then it takes 3 to 5 years even for murder. And then it takes 3 to 5 years to get them tried, because there's no such thing in many places across the country where there are speedy trials, and all that's by design. A lot of places, right?
Yes.
No one should be held pre-trial, pre-conviction.
Nonsense.
Nonsense. Because there's a presumption of innocence.
Yeah, that's right.
But then I look at those people. A guy in Texas, in the Houston area, and he's a commissioner, which is the county people, Rodney Ellis, and he goes to me, Chief, no one should be held because there's the right to presumption of innocence. I said, well, doesn't the Constitution also talk about the right to a speedy trial?
Yeah.
So you can't have it both ways. Either you're going to
and by the way, there's an 8th Amendment that also talks about things like bail.
Right.
Like it presupposes the existence of bail. Why would you need bail? Mm-hmm. Frankly, the way it works is if someone went on camera and said, I am going to murder this person on camera, and murdered them, they'd still be presumed innocent. But who would be like, they ought to stay at the malls with us over the weekends? I mean, it's just not going to happen. Listen, I love that you come in. We're out of time for this segment. Commodore Longshore, anything you wanted to add to this? You have sat here patiently. If you want to correct any of the many misstatements that Chief Acevedo has made, now's your chance.
He's doing great.
Okay.
Mike's not even on. So here you go. Go over here.
Hold on. There's a
No corrections needed.
Yeah, that's it. Well, obviously someone's up for promotion.
Wow,
So,
you heard it here
okay.
first. Chief, you did a great job of the division chief Longshore.
The only thing he left out was, and he remains incredibly good looking for law enforcement. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Chief Art Acevedo, thank you so much again for your time. More texts coming in, more than we can get to, but we'll have you back in for something else scheduled here. I think you guys are working out something.
Yeah,
with Billy
first
right
week
now.
of December, probably the 6th, I think we
Oh,
came up
God.
with.
That's far away, man. It
Yeah.
feels like that's far away. I'd like to have you back in every
I'm
week.
going to miss you, brother.
We
It's
need
hard
the-
without you. It's hard
we
to be
need the-
without you for the whole month.
We need the Art and George show or something, some kind of a podcast. Hey, that's Art
Yeah.
Acevedo. He is the chief of police for Aurora PD. When we come back, Michael Fields from Advance Colorado Insititute. I think he's going to do a little victory dance. Let's find out. George Brauchler, 710 KNUS.
I was fine.
With Proctor back with you here, 710 KNUS. My thanks to Chief Art Acevedo and Commodore Longshore for their appearance here in studio. We'll have him back in next month. Bringing up on the VIP line, he's a voice we just had on the radio yesterday to talk about something called Proposition HH. It's Michael Fields, president of Advance Colorado Insititute. Sir, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Did you get enough sleep last night? I saw you last night at the JJ's thing. It was very celebratory.
Yeah, no, not enough sleep. But I haven't been getting enough sleep for several weeks now since the baby was born. So
Good
soon
point.
we will get rested up.
What's it like to get up and watch your wife do everything?
It's not the case.
I think we need to get your wife on the phone. Maylee, could you please give the hey man, how did you view the results yesterday?
I mean, it was obviously overwhelming. We talked yesterday. I wasn't sure. There was a lot of grassroots opposition, people that were fired up against this, but was that going to get to the larger electorate? The 1.4 million people or 1.5 million people that voted yesterday, and it did overwhelmingly. I mean, there was only, I think, 6 counties that supported it, and those margins were very small, even in Denver and Boulder. They weren't big margins, and so I think it was a good night for Tabor, or Taxpayers' Bill of Rights. And really for this idea that the legislature can't fool people and get away with it.
Listen, this thing took a beating that I don't think you could have predicted. I think you were feeling good, but you were just a little skeptical until you saw the numbers. And I think the initial numbers that came out when you were showing off, and Dustin too, showing off those Denver numbers, it was like, oh, it's over. This thing got a bigger victory margin than CC. And that one was a vigorous defense as well. What happened here? What's the difference?
Yeah, I think largely, that this was trying to trick voters, trying to say the language is one thing, but it's something different. I think a lot of the, groups on the ground, the local government groups, CCI, CML, all these different groups came out against it. But, overall, this was Democrats, Republicans, and unaffiliated voters didn't like this, wanted the legislature to get back to work and do something simple. Just go call a special session and, actually drop property taxes, because people are worried about property taxes. But it was pretty amazing. I mean, the first poll that came out on HH, it was up 20 points. That Magellan poll had it up 20
Holy
points, and then it ended
smokes.
up losing by 20.
Buddy, that's a drubbing. And I'd love to believe that because of this beating, and there have been consecutive beatings whenever they've gone after Tabor, that this is probably the last one of these we'll see for a while. Do you believe that?
I don't know. We thought that after CC. I don't know if that's the case, but I'll tell you, Tabor has gotten more popular over the last few years, both on the tax increase side, and then when the Colorado cashback checks.
It's Kosh, but yeah, I get it. Kosh back.
Sent out last year. I mean, that was just, easy for us to point to and say, that's the money we're talking about that they want to take away gradually and then totally take it away. So people, definitely, I mean, we pull Tabor all the time. I mean, the things, in the 70s at this point. So I don't think they're going to be successful going after Tabor again. They're going to have to do it through the courts like they've been doing for years. But I think, it gives us confidence that we could pass more measures, that we can push back against some of these overreaches by state government.
I saw your wonderful new license plate yesterday, Tabor 53, that you showed off. White on black. That's pretty stark. That's neat. That'll look good on the Yugo. Let me ask, you're not done, by the way. Undeniably, man, you are one of the most successful ballot measure guys out there. You've got stuff ready to go for next year. What's it going to be?
Yes, we have a 4% property tax cap that's already gotten the signatures for next year's ballot. So it's on the ballot next year to make sure this kind of spike doesn't happen again. But we're also looking at other measures. Can we claw back some of this increase that could come if the legislature doesn't do anything? You and I have talked about truth in sentencing.
Oh, yeah.
How we need to make sure violent criminals are staying, in jail at least 85% of their
I know,
sentence.
just a bit.
So we have a bunch of different measures that we want to run because they're popular with the people, but the legislature, would never pass them.
I just think that's a fascinating juxtaposition, that when the voters get to have their say, more often than not, they're picking against the legislature. That's probably a conversation for another day, because we're just about out of time. Hey, congratulations to you, KBB, Rose Puglisi, Barb Kirkmeyer, who I think we're going to have on later today. You guys just crushed this thing.
Well, I appreciate it, and I appreciate what you did and everybody else just spreading the word. That's what it took. It was really grassroots effort to defeat HH.
I'm glad this is the only radio show you're doing today. Thank you. I appreciate that. Michael
I wish
Fields,
that was true too.
you can hear
Thanks.
him by just moving the dial to the left or the right over the next several hours. Michael, thanks, man.
Thanks. Yeah.
Talk to you soon. Hey, when we come back, it's going to be Mayor Mike Coffman. He just survived. Well, he thrived in the election. Stick around. George Brauchler, 710 KNUS. back with you here, 710 KNUS. My thanks to Michael Fields from Advance Colorado Insititute. And prior to him, Chief Art Acevedo from Aurora. We were all together last night at the Victory headquarters there for the watch party at Councilwoman Danielle Jurinsky's place. They're called JJ's. I also ran into another guy who had a nail biter of an election outcome. His name is Mike Coffman. He wants to be mayor for a second term. Sir, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me, George.
Hey, how'd it turn out?
You know, so far so good. I think we're
Oh my
about
God, dude. How can you say so
8,000
far?
votes up. And last time, the 2019, there were 70,000, a little over 70,000 votes cast, and at the end of the election night, we were 3,000 votes up. So I feel pretty good about this election.
Who has yet to be counted? Is it Adams County?
Oh, it's probably. I mean, the numbers are overwhelming in Arapahoe County. So I would say across the board, they still have a part of it to do.
I love the so far so good, as if there's some math that's going to get Juan Marcano over the goal line. You're up 54, 55% to 38%. And I realize nobody wants to get cocky until you get that final confirmation that every vote's been counted. But you would have to take such an epic, disproportionate drubbing with whatever votes remain. I just can't imagine you're not the mayor again for part two.
Yeah, no, I felt confident enough to call it last night, but I called it. It wasn't the media outlets that called it, but I mean, I think we've got a good frame of reference in the 2019 election, which was a tough election, very close, won by less than 1%, and so, but I felt good coming into this election. It was very different than 2019. 2019 was very suburban in terms of its issues. It was, it was parks, it was quality of life, it was transportation, congestion, it was public safety was there, but it was co-equal with everything else. And this election was very urban. It was really, people have a lot of anxiety about crime, about the surge in crime that happened during the pandemic and is still with us. And so that was the central issue. And I think that issue really went across partisan lines. And so I think people wanted that tough on crime approach versus the soft on crime approach.
That's interesting. That's a good analysis. I would have gone with, well, everybody saw how well I did the first 4 years. So, but I appreciate your analysis. But it brings us to a bigger question. Aurora is not a Republican stronghold. I don't know what the RDU breakdown is, but it
by 2-1.
Yeah, 2-1.
Advantage Democrats over Republicans.
And your opponent campaigned on "I'm a Democrat" because he knew that the ballots don't contain the R and the D designation. So everything he had was "I'm a Dem, I'm a Dem, I'm a Dem, I'm a Dem," and it didn't work at all.
No, in fact, it's interesting. His yard signs were prolific, and they had Democrat in large print on them. And my yard signs were equally prolific, and mine had tough on crime.
Oh,
so
interesting.
It was an issue of message that was really the theme of the campaign.
Well, listen, when do you get sworn back in? What's the day they do all this magic?
Oh, I think it's you know what? It's early December.
Early December. So this is going to be your second 4-year term. Do you get any others, or is that it?
No, it's actually 12 years.
Oh.
So it's 3 4-year terms, and so I've just finished my first, and so there's a potential for another after this, but who knows? I'm not speculating on that.
Do you have goals in the short term? The other thing I should ask you about, by the way, because I only touched on a little bit in the 6, the composition of the city council has also changed. Tell us about what happened.
A little bit more conservative than it was. Unfortunately, John O'Scott was not. I mean, we don't know yet, but it doesn't look. The numbers don't look good. He's a little upside down on election night, and we know that things. I mean, HH is a different variable. I'm not sure how that's going to play out. Historically, what's happened is it does trend to the left with election day voters, and we don't know that until they're counted after election day. So but it is. It's going to be. I think we've got 2 swing voters, and we probably got 3. We got 3 on the left right now, We will have a couple swing voters. We've got 5 solid conservative votes, and then myself.
Do you count Curtis and Angela as the swing votes?
They're swing votes, but lately they've been trending
That's
more
true.
conservative, and so I'm hopeful.
That's true. Well, that gives you a better margin as well, which means probably
really does.
less opportunity to be a tiebreaker. Here's a question someone texted in that I wanted to ask you about. All the focus in the news in the metro area seems to be on the new Denver mayor and his approach to homelessness. How do you compare Aurora's approach, your approach to his? And here's the exact question, a different question, but it's along the same lines that a texter put in here. Question for the mayor for whom I voted. 2 campsites in Country Lane Park where camping is prohibited by the city. I turned this in to Access Aurora, and the message that came back was the city would do nothing. Why isn't this law enforced? That probably is just a very specific example of the bigger question, which is, what is your plan and Aurora's plan to deal with homelessness? How's it different than Denver?
Well, let me tell you, first of all, and maybe to that question, that there are areas that really border on our city that are in unincorporated Arapahoe County, but directly influence us. Some of these encampments, and they figured it out, and so they tend to migrate just outside the city. And so I'm trying to develop intergovernmental agreements so that we can abate these areas. And so that's a little problematic jurisdictionally. But I think that Mayor Johnson, and I wish him the best. I hope he's very successful. He's housing first, what's called the housing first philosophy. And that is that housing is so basic to the human condition. If you solve for housing, you solve for everything else. So in other words, and it's not shelter housing. That doesn't count. It's only if they've given some sort of individual housing, like a tiny home, or an apartment or something like that, or a hotel room. And so those things count, but shelter housing doesn't count as housing. And so you offer wraparound services, but it's up to them whether they want to take them. And so the metric of success is just getting people off the street. And under the belief is it's cheaper to keep them housed, even though you have no requirements placed upon them, than it is to have them on the streets. That there's fewer arrests, fewer ER visits, things like this. I think that's a very low bar for success. I mean, I think that these people are funded by the taxpayers, and we ought to require something of them. And we ought to have. I mean, my end state is I want them back working. It's almost like there's a retirement program for people that are in these encampments. That it's give them housing, give them food stamps, give them Medicaid, get them eligible for Social Security disability, where they have a monthly income. So do all these things, and effectively, what you're taking them permanently out of the workforce, making them permanent wards of the state, of the taxpayers. And so I think, I want that the metric of success is that we get people back to work. I get that for the unsheltered homeless, that there's a crisis of drug addiction and mental health, but principally drug addiction. Mental health oftentimes is a collateral effect of prolonged drug use. And but so we need we're a treatment first city. We need to get them into treatment. But ultimately, the goal is to get them to work.
How are you doing that?
Well, we're working on it right now. I think I'm going to put a proposal forward before the end of the year. That will be I'm working with Councilmember Sundberg on the trespass part. So right now on the I-225 corridor and all the right of ways, where it's a center of gravity for homeless encampments.
True.
We're looking at trespassing them. But right now, under a camping ban, it's just you just have to move. You have 72 hours in which to move once you're noticed, and as long as you move, there's no penalties. And you move down the street and you move back. And so it's better than doing nothing, but ultimately it's not effective.
In response to this texter's question specific about Country Lane Park, where they said, hey, the city responded to them, hey, we would do nothing. Any thoughts on that? Are there circumstances where the city
look at that.
wouldn't?
I'm not. I think that it's a townhome association of Yale, but I'm not positive. But the problem right now, the big problem that we have is along the Park Ride 225 area along Cherry Creek Reservoir, but I'll certainly look into that. But that would be inappropriate if it's on private property or public property that that encampment is not abated. On private property, what can occur is that if it's on their homeowners association property, they can file trespass for that. And if it's on public property, obviously, then it's the city's responsibility. But we want to tighten it up. But they certainly can reach out to me, M. Coffman at auroragov.org at any time, and I'll certainly look into it. But I'm unaware of that particular incident.
Now, we're coming up on 3 years since you went undercover as a homeless person, or at least came out of it after about a decade. I think you lived on the streets in and amongst the unhoused. Any thoughts of doing that again? Now that you're in term 2, is this going to be a recurring thing? Do you think you'll go back under and try to maybe even the tiny homes to see how nice they are? Or?
Yeah, you know what? It was the kind of, I'm not going to say once in a lifetime opportunity, but it was the stars kind of lined up to where it was the height of the pandemic, and you had to wear a mask. And I wanted to see the different shelter experience, what it was to be in a shelter and what it was to be in an encampment on the street. I'd probably get away today with being in an encampment on the street because they're, given their drug use and the fact that they're so isolated from society, they wouldn't know who I was. But in the shelters, I wouldn't be able. During the height of the pandemic, you had to wear a mask. It was the end of 2020, beginning of 2021. You had to wear a mask at all times. But the takeaways were so incredible that we are so intentionally misinformed about this crisis that I think that the advocates for the homeless go out of their way to see them as victims and try to present that narrative that this is really an economic issue.
Oh, and they all want homes. They all want this. And I think one of the things you had said was, that's not true. They don't want that.
No, and they're not asking me for those things. They're not asking me today for those things. The people on the street. Now, people that want to get back on their feet, and so homelessness is complicated. But the people that want to get back on the street, and I saw that during the pandemic, there were so many people displaced by the public health orders, for instance, to say, you can't have people you should not have people that are not related to you in your home. Well, that threw out an entire class of workers, the people that clean homes, the people that did interior type work in houses. And so they wound up, they lost their income, couldn't pay their bills, wound up temporarily in the shelters, but they were just waiting out the pandemic to go back to work and to be able to get their own place. I'm 100% confident that they were all able to do that. But you have a large group of people that absolutely have no intention of going back to work, no intention of going to work, particularly the people, if anybody is trying to get back on their feet, they're in a shelter. And we have shelter space for everybody in this metropolitan area today. But for the people that have no intention of getting back on their feet, they're in living on the street. There are some people in cars that actually are trying to get back on their feet too, that are maybe working, that are just temporarily living out of their cars or their vans. A sad situation. But and some of them are not. Some of them it's a way of life. But I think that there is a philosophy in this country that's so anti-work, and I think that philosophy really spills over.
Where does that come from?
Trying to create this
Where is that coming from?
Coming from, in an extent, it's coming from Washington D.C. And then it's Washington D.C. Unfortunately, during the Bush administration, the last Bush administration, declared that the official policy for the federal government in terms of recognition is housing first. And so there's a lot of funding tied to housing first policies, which are really anti-work policies.
That's crazy. This is reading, by the way, from this wonderful, still available Sean Boyd piece from when you went undercover. This is a quote of yours attributed to you. The encampments are not the product of the economy or COVID. They're not a product of rental rates or housing. They are a part of a drug culture, and you talked about people openly using meth and heroin and coke, that there are these unofficial leaders of these encampments. This is another great part of this whole interview, was when you said it's just amazing that people want to help and that they think this cause is a just cause. I remember one of the first people I ran into in an encampment, I asked, where do you get food? He was really perplexed. He goes, people bring us food. And I almost didn't believe it at first. And then you go on to talk about how people are just driving up, giving all these people food.
Oh yeah, I ate much better on the street. I mean, without having to spend a dime, than I did in the shelters. Much better. Now that was,
and you don't have to follow the rules in the shelters. Billy just said that. That's true.
Yeah. So I mean, it's just amazing. So, you know, it's a tough challenge, but I'm certainly working on a unique approach. That again, it's going to be focused on requiring people being more aggressive on abatements, much more aggressive, but more aggressive on treatment. But it's not going to be discretionary. I mean, if we're going to make it, I mean, the reality is it's tough love approach, and you have to make it untenable for people to be on the street.
Well,
and that's all.
That just makes sense, and it's consistent with what we know about human nature. These harm reduction folks that show up at the legislature testifying about ways to take away the tools from cities for this are people who just firmly believe you just keep these drug addicts alive and safely drug induced until some magical moment when they decide they want to get off the drugs, which never happens. They just end up in the ground. I don't want to turn it into all drugs and all homelessness, but that's a huge thing for Aurora. But as you head into this second of 12 terms, or I can't remember what you said, what are your goals in this term for Aurora? Short term, long term, what are your thoughts?
It's really continuing on the things that I've been working on. But it is, reducing crime by supporting our police department, making sure we have a fully staffed police department, making sure that we have the laws on the books at the local level that have consequences, working with our partners at the state legislature and the governor to make sure that we have criminal laws that have consequences to reduce crime. And then I think on homelessness is really, we're going to push forward with a unique approach that focuses on getting people to work. That's tough love focuses on getting people to work. And then we've got to address the issue of housing affordability. We have, I've put forward a resolution to place the city under Proposition 123 that was passed last year. And that requires us, we can draw down some state funds for being under that. And that requires us to increase our affordable housing inventory by 3% year over year. So I think addressing those three issues is going to be important going forward.
Now, listen, Texter came in with an idea. I'm going to try to take it to the next level. We can do this on a future show, but what about, and this would go viral. This is like Netflix level stuff. Okay. But what about you and Mayor Mike Johnston doing that kind of odd couple undercover thing? Homeless, Denver and Aurora, and you just sort of check out each of the things and see how it's going from the ground level. This is the kind of government people want. I'm just saying, if you guys could pull this off, first off, Sean Boyd would win some kind of an Emmy or a Peabody. But
yeah, let me tell you.
But who knows?
I have no intention. Let me tell you, being on the street was dangerous. And people, when people say, "Oh, these." People don't want to go to the people in the campus don't want to go to shelters because, that they're dangerous and, they worry about their safety. They worry about getting their few possessions stolen. And in the height, this was in the pandemic that they worry about their public health in a congregate. They worry about their own health in a congregate setting. I mean, I just, let me tell you, I felt relatively safe. In the shelters. I never felt safe on the street.
Wow.
I mean, it is a dangerous lifestyle. I never got anything stolen in the shelters. I about got everything stolen in the encampments. And they could care of, these people at that time were shooting up meth. Now they're doing fentanyl. They're trending towards fentanyl. And, so they didn't quite care about public health out there on the street where they made you do they had lots of requirements and rules in the shelter. and rules is what keeps a lot of people that are in the unsheltered environment off the streets. Let me just end with one more thing, because unfortunately I got to get going, and that is that oftentimes people talk about mental health, and I really think that mental illness being a function of people on the street, I really think that much of the mental illness is really tied to drug use, and the deinstitutionalization of these, I guess you might call them asylums, or that existed in the 60s and 70s. They went away. I think the enabling legislation, I think, started in the Kennedy administration, but they went away in the Reagan administration with some idea that they would be better off within their own communities. I don't think that's true, but the fact is that you can't really trace the rise of unsheltered homelessness with that. The rise of unsheltered homelessness is really with the advent of highly addictive, very cheap drugs, crystal methamphetamine, and now fentanyl. And there were drugs that preceded that, but it's really this is really a drug culture, and a lot of the mental illness is drug induced over time.
We've seen this surge in mental illness, not because we're better at identifying it and treating it, but it just happens to coincide with sort of this it feels like a European approach to drugs, especially as we move towards more and more of these ridiculous debates about safe injection sites. I agree with you. All this stuff seems to be preceded by a very permissive drug culture. We'll try to solve that in the next term. I know you got to go. Mayor and Mayor-elect Mike Coffman, it was great seeing you last night. I haven't seen you smile that much in a while. It was good to see you happy. Congratulations.
Thanks. I appreciate it, George.
Thanks for joining us. I'll talk to you again. Hey, that's Mayor Mike Coffman. Aurora, of course, third largest city in the state of Colorado, and the one that outside of that $175 million facility that Denver's going to build out there in Inglewood, I was really thinking, and it could still happen, they're going to get the Broncos to move to the SoFi Stadium in Aurora. Got to get it out of Denver. We'll talk to the mayor about that next chance we get. Listen, I'm going to cut away for a break, but not before I tell you about Joyce and Brent Tolliver. They do the roll them out shelves. As I'm listening to Mayor Mike talk, I'm like, well, if you're in a home, you're definitely thinking about maximizing your cabinet space. And now it makes me wonder, are these things even available to those in those little micro homes, those tiny homes? I don't know. But in your house, regardless of the size, you've got cabinets, some of which are perfectly aligned with what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. Some of them are not. They're hard to get into. You got to get down on your knees. You got to dig around in the dark for something. Why not invite Roll 'em Out Shelves to come out? Free consultation. In fact, if you do your business with them, you have them come out and do their in-home estimate today, you receive your first 4 rollouts installed at no charge. That's an $80 value. You're going to see firsthand what wonders they can do. I got to hook up with them. I'm doing this thing. They're going to come out to Casa del Jorge, take a look around and figure out. And it's not just the kitchen, by the way. It could be the laundry room. It could be the basement where you have cabinetry, and even the garage. That's the part I read that I'm like, oh, the garage. Everybody would love to have a more efficient and easier to get around garage. These are the folks you call to do it. 5-star ratings across the board. What? How do you do that? Use Brent and Joyce Tolliver at Roll 'em Out Shelves and find out. 303-475-9601. 303-475-9601, or you can check them out at rollemoutshelves.com. The M is EM, rollemoutshelves.com. When we come back, Senator Barb Kirkmeyer going to do a little bit of a Snoopy dance here in victory on HH, but I really want to know what's next. Now what? Now that HH has been defeated, they have a plan. We'll talk with her about it when we come back. George Brauchler, 710 KNUS.
Say goodbye to clutter and hello to convenience when you experience organization transformation in your home. Roll 'em Out Shelves, your clutter transformation experts, create affordable Colorado-crafted organized storage solutions. These custom options will maximize and organize your kitchen and bath storage as Roll 'em Out Shelves carefully designs and builds roll-out drawers to fit your space perfectly. To clear the clutter, contact owners Joyce and Brent at Roll 'em Out Shelves to schedule your free in-home estimate today.
Chris Brauchler back with you here on 710 KNUS. My thanks to Mayor Mike Coffman. Great description of what's going on out there on the streets and Aurora's approach to it. That event last night was kind of a who's who of superstars and winners. Next up on the line for us, pleased to have her on. Got a chance to see her last night as well. Big smile on her face. Senator Barb Kirkmeyer, thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on this morning. And it was a great night. Just a great night.
And I'll be honest, as a Republican in Colorado, we could use a lot more of those, like we just haven't had a ton.
Yeah, we could.
Give me your assessment. And for folks that haven't heard before, you and Rose Puglisi, Representative Puglisi, kind of like double teamed this thing along with Michael and KBB from the legislature standpoint to really bring it down. Huge victory. What do you attribute this 20-point crushing to?
I think it's just our message did resonate. And people didn't understand necessarily what was on the ballot. I mean, I'm telling you, I think there was probably at least 95 legislators who truly didn't understand what was on the ballot. And I think, I think 3 years ago, they were told, wow, if you get rid of this safety net called the Gallagher Amendment, your taxes won't go up. And then their taxes go through the roof. And they're like, wait a minute, you told us one thing 3 years ago,
right.
And now you're trying to tell us again that we've got to give up our Tabor refunds. And I just think the Democrats truly just underestimated how much people really like their Tabor refund. Like they understand Tabor. Even though we've had a huge influx of people who have moved into our state, there are still a lot of people. I mean, in my own county, this went down by over 70%. In Weld County, it was like 71, 72% and voted no. I mean, they get it. We've been talking about it, and we just had elections on this just recently about it. So I think people understood more. And like I said last night, hey, Governor, Coloradoans aren't dumb. They can figure this out.
I think that was the phrase of the night when I saw you up in front of the cameras, you and Rose talking about it. And you said, I think the message is pretty clear here. Hey, Governor, Coloradans aren't dumb. And that's borne out by the vote. Now, you've been around long enough to see these efforts come and go. CC got beaten, HH got drubbed. I asked Michael Fields this too, but I want to get your sense of it from your colleagues under the Gold Dome. Are they going to take another run at this again? Do they take a year off, or when do they finally get the message that people like them their Tabor?
I really don't know. I mean, I've been talking to a few Democrats in the last week, across the aisle, and they're like, well, what are we going to do? And I'm like, we have to give meaningful tax relief. And that starts on our side with reducing the income tax. We have a role in the property tax relief as well, but we need to really be looking at the whole picture here. And, over the course of the last couple of months and all these panels and forums that have been on, it's the yes on HH side, it was all about growing government. It's all about government needs. It's all, but government has to have this. And the fire districts had to have yet another new fire truck. And, they just kept going on, and we've got to have more money for education. And then lo and behold, the governor puts out a budget because, he actually has to follow the law, but he puts out a budget and, it says we're going to fully fund education. And I asked him, is this determined upon HH? And he's like, no, doesn't matter if HH passes or fails. We are going to fully fund education. I thought, well, that's good because we put it in the law last year. But you know what I'm saying? So it's like all of this just misleading information. And I'm to the point of where I think it's intentional on the part of, my colleagues on the other side of the aisle. It's intentional. They just try and mess with people. And it's like, I think people are figuring it out. It's like, look, we don't trust you so much anymore.
Undeniably. They did things. Yeah. You guys in the legislature have superpowers that regular folks like Billy and I don't have, which is apparently they can jam a 4-issue ballot measure using all sorts of language just short of who loves puppies on there. Yeah. And it passes any kind of muster. The court just kind of shrugs like, nah, it's the legislature. And they let him do it. And still it got beaten down. So the next question, the big question is, what now?
So what now is we still have to keep pressing for a special session. It's imperative to get any kind of property tax relief for this next year for, from 2023 to 2024. We have to have a special session. We've got to move some dates. I mean, county commissioners are certifying mill levies across the county here by December 15th. If we don't get those dates changed, treasurers and assessors have dates that they have to try and meet. So that was one of the things that was in Proposition HH that was necessary, was moving those dates around. We've got to do that. It has to be done before the end of the year, or there won't be any meaningful property tax relief. Everyone will be paying huge increases next year. Huge.
You've
right?
just answered the question, which is, well, the legislative session is going to start in less than 2 months anyway. Why not just wait till then? Your answer is the answer, which is, if we don't get it done in this calendar year, you don't get to see the relief.
Exactly. And you know what? It is time for this governor and this legislature to step up and actually be leaders and take into consideration what Coloradoans are going through. It's not about expanding government. It's about giving relief to the Coloradoans in this state, whether that's property tax relief or income tax relief. It's looking at that senior property tax exemption. I mean, Senator Liston has carried a bill for the last 2 years to make it portable. We didn't need to go to the ballot. We just need to go get our jobs done and be leaders and truly think how we're going to look out for Coloradoans.
Have you heard from any of your Democrat colleagues in light of this? Here's why I asked that question. I was heartened to hear that even before the results were made official, the governor had started reaching out to members of the minority and saying, hey, can we work together? Can we try to figure something out? I think that's probably the right answer in good government. I wish he'd have done that way long ago, but here we are. Have you heard that same kind of thing from your colleagues across the aisle?
Not a lot. I mean, I've heard it some. You know, I saw some of them even yesterday. We were at some meetings together, and they're like, we're going to have to do something. I'm like, yeah, we are.
That's right.
It's like,
That's right.
we should have done something, you know, during the session. And you're so totally right. I mean, it's great. You know, the governor finally reached out to the minority, reached out to the Senate Minority Leader, Paul Lundeen, and the House Minority Leader, Mike Lynch, and said, you know, how are we going to move forward? You know, what can we do, kind of thing. He didn't actually say we're going to have a special session, though, which I find disconcerting. But I think that's great. But you know what? We knew about this problem over a year ago. We knew about the problem that was being created, or at least some of us did, you know, when Gallagher was repealed. And yet there was nothing. I mean, local governments came out opposed to this, mostly because they were ticked off that they weren't even included in the conversation, in the discussion about what we do. And Republicans weren't at all. I mean, all of a sudden we get a bill and here we are with it. And, you know, they should have had a lot of us in on that discussion, and they just did it down on the first floor and thought they could get by with it. I mean, keep in mind, they did a property tax relief. It was 22,238, you know, at the end of the 22 session. That one was shoved through in the last few days of the session as well. So this is kind of their MO.
Is your sense from all of these debates and conversations that have been taking place that there are some areas of consensus, or is this going to be a start from scratch approach if we get that special session?
I think there's a lot of area of consensus. I think the first area is, and from my perspective, we need the whole package. This is our time to get this whole package. But the first area certainly is the Homestead Exemption Act, and making it for seniors, making it portable, and also increasing the amount of that exemption. Now, do we go from 100,000 to 200,000, or do we go to 100,000 to 150,000? I mean, I'm pushing for the 200,000 because it hasn't been changed since its inception. But I think there's agreement that yes, we can do that, and that's something that we can all agree on. I think there's agreement that there should be property tax relief, but you know, the devil's going to be in the details there. We need to get local governments to the table and figure out how we're going to take care of that. As far as the income tax relief, I think there's agreement between Republicans and the governor. Now he needs to go be a leader with his Democrat coalitions and talk to them about how do we give relief in income tax relief. And I think that could be there as well. I mean, we just need to stop this whole thing of over collecting, of overburdening our taxpayers. And we just shouldn't be collecting in the first place, you know, to where we're creating surpluses. There should not be a surplus in government.
You also remember just recently, relatively recently, the governor was quoted as saying, I'd love to get to no income tax for the state of Colorado. So you know where his head is. It's just trying to get the rest of the legislature on board.
Well, the Republicans are all on board. We're with you on that. And I think, again, that's just another point of where we can start from that I think we do have some agreement on. I think the agreement is let's relieve Coloradoans of their tax burden as much as we can. So let's start there and go for it. There are bills that have been out there for the last couple of years. We don't have to start from scratch. We just need to get started together.
Well, I am fascinated by the fact that the legislature, which is firmly in the hands of the folks, not you and Rose, are out there doing things that are so contrary to the will of the people that when you guys show up to do an end run around them and access the ballot through the petition method, you guys win over and over and over, especially when it deals with fiscal issues and Tabor and all that other stuff. You would think that that would be its own wake-up call. I just haven't seen it yet.
I haven't either. And I was kind of a little bit disappointed with Senator Fenberg's comment, like, well, now we need to figure out a path forward. It's like, what? You were one of the sponsors of this bill. The path forward is we need to get property tax reductions. We need to make the senior property tax exemption portable. We need to increase that, Homestead Act exemption. There's a lot of path forward here. It's just because it didn't go the way that you tried to shove through doesn't mean we don't have a path forward.
Amen to that. Senator Barb Kirkmeyer, congratulations. Huge victory. I hope you get a chance to take a knee for a little bit today.
No, actually, I'm on my way to work. I got something to do today. So let's go work. I'm ready to get back to work. Let's get back in session. Come on, Governor. Just call it. Let's go be leaders and serve the people of our state.
You can't end it better than that. We'll have you back on in the future as you continue to do great things. Thanks, Senator.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
See ya. That was Senator Barb Kirkmeyer. Happy to see her yesterday over at JJ's. Also ran into great listener. You'll recognize this name, Alexa, in the flesh. And speaking of that, she had some suggestions on how I might improve my skin game, and I mean that in the best possible way. I mean, my skin, like I have these wrinkles that suggest that I'm in my 90s or 100s. I'm not there yet. I'm close, but I'm not there yet. It was great to see her as well. It was just a packed place at JJ's, a lot of fun. In fact, we're going to end up talking to the owner and purveyor of JJ's in the 9 o'clock hour. Her name's Danielle Jurinsky, not just on the politics piece, but she had a big outcome in court yesterday on this thing that has traumatized her, I think, since back when it happened. We're going to talk to her. But until then, I want to tell you about Dan Kaplis. Dan's the kind of lawyer, he doesn't do that kind of Danielle Jurinsky criminal stuff. That's a different kind of attorney. Dan's the guy that gets you justice in the civil courts. And I've talked about Dan for a long time now. And I'm going to continue to tell you there's a couple things that you need to know about Dan. One, you can trust Dan. I did. In fact, I trusted him kind of with my career in a way because I went and worked for the guy back 17, 18 years ago. I can't believe it's been that long ago. And that's when I first met his partner, Bobber, who was a brand new attorney. We did his very first jury trial together. And we learned how to try cases under Dan. And since then, and I hate to say this, has been true about a couple places. When I leave a firm or an office, it actually improves. It actually does better. They have been doing incredible work at a level that I don't even recall us doing when I was there. They've just taken it to the next level. They have an incredible staff, incredible attorneys that work with them. And these are the guys that will get you into the end zone on justice when other places just want to cut and run. They just want to get you a quick check, get you out the door, and keep burning and churning. That's just not these guys. That's not their model. Their model isn't, we need to get as many cases as possible in here. It's, we take righteous cases, period. If you've got one or you know someone who does and they need that elite kind of help, then give them a call at 303-770-5551, 303-770-5551. You can also check them out at dankaplislaw.com. Kaplis has a scene at dankaplislaw.com. Listen, any thoughts on all the interviews we've had? I know we've been interview heavy, haven't done a bunch of calls since the 6th. 303-696-1971. And we'll finish up this hour together at the George Brauchler Show on 710. George Brauchler back with you here, 710 KNUS. Listen, last night I was at JJ's. I've told you that. Everybody that was anybody was there, unless you were Stefan and you showed up later and I had already left. One of those people is on the line with us right now. You know her better as a candle maker. Her name is Pricilla Rahn. Pricilla, thanks for joining us.
Good morning. I feel special to be on your show this morning because I'm not a police chief or a mayor. So
no, you're not.
you.
But in some point in the future, you could end up being a county commissioner in Douglas County. You'd be my county commissioner. Let me ask you, by the way, because you brought up the chief, you and the chief are in discussions on a special scented candle.
Yeah.
And he wanted it to smell like a jail, which I don't know how you do that. But no.
I could try to find a cement smell or something like that.
Once you perfected the feet smell for the Kellner candle, the Jonas Prudence one, I feel like you can do just about anything. What is your sense of last night? You're a Douglas County person just like I am. Let's talk about that. What was your sense of how that turned out?
Douglas County, for a lot of folks, was just a little disappointing with the school board outcomes. I looked at the numbers this morning, and it looks like there were some undervoting in the school board race. Surprisingly, 5A passed, 5B didn't. So I think the district's going to have to get creative with the buildings and the new schools. I know that's on their radar. But I know that Douglas County residents in general really do care about our students. They care about our teachers. Of course, we want to be competitive. I'm a teacher, so I think it's really important for us to focus on making sure we have the best schools, and we have amazing schools, and we have really great leadership. And so it's always opportunity to be better.
I know that you can only give us a couple seconds here because you're off to go do that special teaching thing that you do, but give us your kind of last second takeaways from yesterday. What do you think?
I'm so excited that Proposition HH failed. We have sent a strong message to the governor and to the state lawmakers that hands off our Tabor refunds and don't deceive us. I mean, we expect our elected officials to be principled, to have integrity. I would love to see the rule changed where if you're a lawmaker and you put something on the ballot, that it does have to go through the title board, because it's not equitable, it's not fair, and deceiving the public should never be something that we utter. And the fact that we're talking about, and I would love to see Democrat legislators be principled and stand up against this, what they're being pushed to do, for what? To sell out Colorado residents and homeowners, to bloat government and to force us to give them, a blank check. That's not what we elect our legislators to do. So it's high time for us to make sure that we vet our candidates, that we ask them the questions that are pertinent to the job that they're applying for, and hold them accountable. But at the end of the day, I can choose how to spend my money better than the government. And I would love to see our residents of Colorado and citizens of Colorado trust themselves more than they trust the government.
I would love to see, by the way, 2 other candidates for county commissioner. One's a butcher, one's a baker. Then we could add a candlestick maker. Pricilla Rahn, future Douglas County commissioner, current teacher, entrepreneur. Thanks for taking time out of your morning to chat with us. Great seeing you last night.
Thanks, George. You too. Take care.
See ya. That was Pricilla Rahn. Hey, listen, coming up in the 9 o'clock hour, Danielle Jurinsky back in the news, but for all the good reasons. Coming up next, you stick around. We'll get to you as well. Get that phone number ready, 303-696-1971. George Brauchler, 710 KNUS. George Brauchler back with you here. Final hour of the Hump Day show. Kind of celebratory around here for a whole bunch of reasons. Last night, a great night. Yesterday, a great day. Before we get to our special VIP guest, fan favorite, by the way, listener favorite, I can just tell from the texts that come in. I need to tell you about something else that is quickly becoming a fan favorite, and that is QC Kinetics folks that are out there. I talked to someone. This is crazy. This is how I know that we have the reach that we do. I'm at this event last night at JJ's, and I had separate people come up to me and say, hey, tell me about QC Kinetics and tell me about this UltraCur stuff. I love hearing that stuff. So someone came up and they were talking to me about regenerative medicine. That's what QC Kinetics does. They figure out a way to use you to fix you. That means no downtime because you've opened yourself up with a scalpel or someone has through surgery. No risk of infection, no long-term rehabilitation, no pain pills. It's just in and out, and you let you start to heal you. If that sounds good to you because you've got the kind of pain in your knees and your back and your hips, you're just tired of it, don't want to live with it anymore, call the local medical professionals at 303-900-8986, 303-900-8986, or you can check them out, of course, online at QC Kinetics, K-E-N-E-T-I-X, QCkinetics.com. Another person I just happened to run into at JJ's, turns out she owns it, is Danielle Jurinsky. Councilwoman, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, George.
It's kind of hard to know where to begin with your yesterday because it was all success all day long. Do you want to start with politics or crime?
Pick one. Pick one out of the hat, George.
I'm going to go politics first because I want to end with the even bigger personal one. Tell me about how you interpreted the results yesterday. First off, your place was the place to be. And I don't just mean that from my standpoint. I mean, everybody was there. I mean, Governor Bill Owens was there. All the people that work these campaigns from every angle, all the candidates. I mean, Stefan even showed up uninvited. No, I'm kidding. Stefan showed up too.
Well,
how did you interpret it?
Let's pause there a moment on Stefan. A couple things. You know, when we were walking out of court yesterday, Stefan said, "Are you coming to my party tonight?" And I said, "Well, Stefan, I don't understand why you have to be such a loner and why you couldn't incorporate your party with ours,
of course,
at JJ's." Well, again, as you pointed out, look who even showed up at JJ's.
That's right. I don't know who helped him schedule his party to coincide with the victory party at your place, but they're a person that doesn't really understand current events. I presume Stefan did it himself. How did you interpret the results at the poll? This affects you because you're on city council.
Yes. I am so excited. I mean, 5 out of the 6 candidates that I was supporting won. We strengthened our majority on council. We gained a seat. Stephanie Hancock is an amazing human being. I'm looking forward to serving with her. I'm excited. I am so happy. And Juan Marcano has lost. He has yet to accept the election results, but he's lost.
Maybe he'll claim the election was stolen. No,
I
don't know.
I'm hoping he does.
For the future of Aurora, from your perch, now that you guys have strengthened your majority on there, you have the right mayor in place. What do you think is coming up in the future? What are you guys going to try to tackle that maybe you didn't know you'd be successful at before?
I think we're going to revisit homelessness. We're definitely going to look at, public safety, crime. Dustin Zvonek and I have a couple mandatory minimum jail sentences in place for retail theft and auto theft. But I think we're going to revisit all of these things. Some places where, we had to make some negotiations to get some things passed. And now we don't have to. And now we can really focus on the crime, the homelessness, businesses, supporting the businesses in Aurora, supporting economic growth, development. I mean, everything that we've maybe had to give an inch, we don't have to now.
What is your sense of how the ballot turned out this way in such a diverse, not Republican stronghold city like Aurora? Do you think it has to do with the fact that these ballots don't contain R's and D's and they force people to dig a little bit deeper on the candidates and their positions?
I think so. I think so, but something very, very interesting. So our opponents on the ballot, they made sure, George, to put Democrat on everything, on their signs, on their literature, on their website, on everything. So anybody who would get their ballot and say, well, let me look up Juan Marcano, they would immediately see your Democratic candidate for Aurora Mayor.
Interesting.
And they all thought they had it in the bag just by putting Democrat on, everything, all of their stuff. And I think my hope is that some people are really starting to see the radicalization for what it is. Juan Marcano, Allison Coombs, Tim Hernandez, these are not Democrats. These are not Democrats. And I think that people are starting to see that. And, these guys can make us out to be Trump cultists and MAGA extremists and right-wing crazy people. But at the end of the day, we're not. And they're so crazy that they've made us extremely moderate.
By comparison, for sure. It feels like, too, the outcome of this election is an endorsement of what you've been doing so far. Like whoever
That's
these
right.
Aurora voters are, they're looking around going, I don't want to change from this. I like where we're headed.
That's exactly right. That is exactly right. And that is the best feeling ever.
Now, that might be the second best feeling ever, given the other great thing that happened yesterday. I had you on yesterday to talk about the fact that this Robin Niceta trial had gotten underway. I was embarrassed to not be tracking the fact that it started on Monday. When we talked yesterday, just about 24 hours ago, I said, hey, how long do you think this thing is going to go on? And you said it could wrap up today. And I was incredulous. Like, no, I mean, yeah, blah, blah. What happened?
It wrapped up with a guilty verdict on both charges, and they hauled Robin Niceta off in handcuffs right in front of me in that courtroom. And I might have taken the deepest breath, George, that I have taken in almost 2 years.
That's a phenomenal outcome. I couldn't believe they'd even closed with the evidence, but they did. You talked about yesterday, Detective Johnny Turnage up on the stand. He was on there for a while, but not as long as you thought he'd be on there. And it sounds like, did the defense cross-examine anyone?
I think maybe 2 of like the 5 witnesses, but they cross-examined with maybe 1 or 2 questions was all. It was wild. I mean, they had no defense. The defense was simply, you cannot prove this is Robin Niceta's voice on the recording, even though her boss positively identified it as her voice. They were claiming, well, she's not a professional, voice analyst. Their defense simply was, she didn't do this. Vanessa did this. They lived together. She had access to her Apple Watch, her laptop, and her phone. Vanessa did all of this. And that was simply their defense.
Unbelievable. By the way, nobody listening right now to 710 is likely an expert voice analyst person. And my guess is everybody here can hear that it's Danielle Jurinsky on the radio. You know what I mean? Like you, and not because they know you on any other kind of basis. You listen to the closing argument, and you described some of that right there. How did they tackle, if at all, the evidence that she faked a brain tumor? Did they blame that on Vanessa too? The chief
that was
planted
completely
the fake.
ignored. That was completely ignored. It was not even. They didn't even acknowledge it. It's like it was the most surreal thing. It was, George, like none of this exists. Like it just simply doesn't exist.
What was her reaction when the verdict gets read?
Stoic. She didn't move. She didn't flinch.
No more winking.
She wouldn't even look at me on her way out of the courtroom yesterday. But I plan to wink at her on January 19th at the sentencing hearing.
I asked you last night. I said, hey, first off, I couldn't believe it. Like when I walked in, I said, so how's it going? And you're like, don't you read your texts? And apparently the answer was no. But I asked you, hey, did you get a chance to talk to the jurors afterwards? Tell us about that.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome. When it was over, there were several jurors that, had kind of stuck around. And one in particular, I was trying to put my mic on because the media was, of course, waiting for me. And one walked right up to me and said, "Congratulations." And I looked up and I saw who it was. I recognized him as one of the jurors. I teared up.
Oh.
I grabbed him. He grabbed me. I mean, we just stood there hugging, and I just kept thanking him. And it was an amazing moment. And it just reaffirms for me that there are good people in this world. And sometimes the most incredible people in your life can be a total stranger. I didn't know this juror. I didn't know any of these jurors, but they waited around after the verdict. I hugged several of them. But this one juror in particular, I mean, he held on to me, and a total stranger. I don't even know the man's name. He had a juror number. I don't even know his name. And this man just held on to me.
Oh, it's so nice.
Incredible.
Did they talk to you at all, the jurors that stuck around? Did they talk to you at all about anything that they were thinking when they were deliberating, or, hey, this piece of evidence, or any of that stuff?
No, I didn't get into any of those conversations. The same juror that, hugged me, he did interview with the media. And,
I think I saw that
that's
one.
out there. Yep, that's out there. That's
he
that
talked
juror.
about the
Mhm.
evidence too, and he talked about how the computer and phone forensic stuff was huge. By the way, you had a huge posse of support there, including our own Stephen Tubbs, or formerly our own Stephen Tubbs, Marsha Berzins, former city council member. She was there. But there was another woman there, and I can't remember her name, and I wouldn't say it because she's not in the public eye. But I asked her, I said, "Hey, you were in there. Tell me about it." She goes, "Well, I wasn't that impressed with the prosecution." And I looked at her, I go, "Oh, really?" And she goes, "But the defense sucked." I just burst out laughing. And I'm like, I sort of give them a little bit of grace, because what did they have to work with? I mean, the only thing they didn't have was this crime on video. That was the only thing missing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, there's some criticism, of the prosecution. Obviously, Daniel Cohen and I started off on very rocky terms.
I remember.
But
he's a winner, man. He won.
Say. That's right. And there were some things, this whole defense about Vanessa did it. People were upset that Cohen didn't decide to haul Vanessa into court to testify for herself, that she didn't do this. There were a couple other things that definitely raise an eyebrow, like, well, what is he thinking? Why isn't he bringing this up? But at the end of the day, and when I talked to Johnny Turner, I said, why aren't these things being brought up? And Johnny, in his very calming nature, said, "Danielle, this case is so strong. This evidence is so strong. There is no reason to introduce anything or anyone else."
He's so right. And Daniel Cohen was right too. I mean, I don't know him, but the tactical decision, and it would have been personally satisfying, right? To get Vanessa up on the stand and have the question. That would have been personally satisfying. But both Johnny and Daniel are right. This would have been a distraction from the overwhelming evidence you already had. That's just smart thinking.
That's right. That's right. Absolutely.
Now, you talked about the sentencing coming up on January. What did you say it was?
George, get your calendar out right now. I don't want you to miss this one. Okay. Listen to me. January 19th. At 11 a.m.
At 11 a.m. Who's the judge?
Eric Ellis out of Denver. They had to bring in a special prosecutor, a special judge. Eric Ellis.
And you guys were in 201, right? Is that where the sentencing is going to be?
Yep.
Okay. 201's the big daddy on the second floor, all the way at the end. When you come out of the elevators, I'm saying this for listeners, just keep walking forward to your right, all the way down to the end of that hall, and that'll get you there. If you've hit the stairs, one, you can't use them, but two, you've gone too far. Let me ask this, though. This is not the end of the saga. What's next?
Well, so for the end of the first saga, it will be January 19th for the sentencing hearing. And I hope so many people can come. Anybody listening, I would love your support to show up for the sentencing. But now we move on to all of the death stunt stuff, her fake brain tumor, she's dying, she's drooling on herself. Now we move on to those charges, which for her presents 7 new felony charges and 3 new misdemeanor charges. And for her mother, 2 felony charges and 2 misdemeanor charges.
Are they going to be tried together or separately?
Separately.
You said yesterday that the felony charge she was convicted of carries up to 6 years in the Department of Corrections. That sounds like a probation eligible charge, but I get it. This next case, though, carries much stiffer penalties. What's the maximum she could face on that case?
Well, it's interesting that you asked that, because I went up to John Kellner last night and asked him to please email me that this week. I don't know the exact amounts of time each one of those charges are carrying, but I will have that information this week. And my hope is, I know that these first charges are probation eligible, but my hope is that Judge Ellis sentences some sort of jail time. Maybe it won't be all 6 years. I would like for it to be. But that Robin is at least sitting in jail through this next trial, and she cannot further pull any of her shenanigans.
I think too that is he going to be the judge, by the way, in the next set of the next case? I'm sorry.
No, because the new charges are out of Kellner's office.
And those are Kellner's office and probably an Arapahoe County judge then.
Yep. Yeah.
Interesting. And John Kellner also was at the Who's Who event of the political year that was yesterday at JJ's. There was something else I had teased before you got on the radio, and that was the idea that Robin Niceta was given a bond, and Billy read it in the 6 o'clock hours, a $10,000 cash bond. That actually is a benefit to you. Talk about that.
Yeah. So this is the second bond that she's had to post a cash bond. And because I have this $3 million judgment against her, we just file writs of garnishment, and I'm just collecting all of these bonds. They'll be released to me when this madness ends, however long it takes to get through all of the court proceedings.
This may be the only way to get her to pay off that $3 million debt, especially if she's going to end up being incarcerated. It's hard to imagine what that future business is that sees her background and goes, no, I think you're a safe bet for this child care office or whatever. I mean, where are you working? Fast food? I don't think so. Like, I wouldn't trust her to give me the Big Mac.
Well, she was working at Chili's down in New Mexico. I had found out. Oh, yeah.
No. With the amount of revenge, too, can you imagine what she's putting in food when she feels like she has been mistreated by a customer? You can't take that risk. So today, big day, did you sleep well? And what's on the agenda for today? You taking a knee, or are you just right back at it?
Yeah, no, I'm working. I'm covering a bartending shift today, and nope, I'm working. I'm on the grind. I'm excited. I feel rejuvenated. I feel motivated. No sitting around for me.
By the way, that event at JJ's was really awesome. I mean, it was just upbeat, jubilant at times. Tons of media were there, but I wanted to tell you, nice work for your staff. Your staff was dealing with 8 billion people in there, and they did it. I think I never saw them anything other than just completely gracious. And what can I do to help you? And what can I get you? And when I'd say things like, I'd like to rummage through Danielle's purse, they brought me your purse. I mean, it was awesome. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. But anything that anybody asked for, they were like, sure, let me get, and it had a smile on their face. They just did great work. They're
amazing. My staff is incredible. I'm fortunate to have every single one of them, and I know how hard they work. That was an incredible event, and they love that too, right? Like they love those events and meeting people, and they deal with all my crazy shenanigans, and they have all fully accepted that with me being in public office, there's going to be these types of events. They're going to meet other elected officials, and they love it. They're happy to be there.
I was too. Let me know when you guys are going to do something else out there, because it's kind of a magical place. It's Aurora City Councilwoman and victorious victim against Robin Niceta through the criminal justice process, Danielle Jurinsky. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, George. See you soon.
Talk to you soon. And she was right, by the way, too. Didn't wear the red dress thing that we joked about. She did have a red thing on. Well, I can't remember if it was a sweater or something. There was a lot of red in that room, by the way, including Senator Barb Kirkmeyer. My thanks to Danielle Jurinsky for giving us that time and that insight into what took place in that courtroom. That's one of the fastest cases. I should have asked her how quick the verdict was, but I saw online it was like an hour and 10 minutes. But one of the jurors came back and said, was actually much quicker than that. I think we were just kind of hanging around. So hats off to her. A lot of people here texted in, Eric Manning, Alexa, and others, thanking Danielle for being such a great stand-up victim through all this stuff. Now, listen, we're going to cut away for a break. I'd love to get your feedback on this, and I want to get your wrap-up thoughts on this. What were your takeaways, not just locally, but nationally from the elections that took place yesterday? 303-696-1971. Can't cut away, though, till I tell you about Drs. Richter and Snyder. They are the practitioners that run the show down at Twin Aspen Dental Center. They're my dentists. They're the ones that make these teeth. And if you're looking at the Rumbles or the YouTubes, those teeth right there make them fully functional, keep my mouth healthy, because that's the gateway to everything else that goes on the inside. And they want to help you do the same thing. They're just not a big box store kind of, hey, we're going to have a different dentist and staff here every year to 2 years. That's just not how they do business. They're old school, and that's a good thing for you, and that's a great thing for me. It's why I chose them. I got the same dental hygienist. I've been lucky now 3-4 times in a row. Shiloh's fantastic. They're all great. Every time I walk by something and in full HIPAA violation stare at what procedure's going on. I'm kidding. I don't do that. Everybody just seems so relaxed, stress-free environment, and they walk out of there feeling good about themselves and what they've done. These people provide not just emergency dental services, but all the stuff, the same-day crowns, dental implants, dentures, Invisalign clear aligners. They do it all. Go check them out. Now, listen, you can hop online and get to know a little bit more about them at twinaspendentalcenter.com, twinaspendentalcenter.com. But my suggestion is just take a break from your dentist just one time. Give them a call at 303-841-7466, 303-841-7466. My guess is once you go see them once, you're just going to keep seeing them. That's what I did. Hey, stick around. We'll get to the calls that are coming in right now on your text. It's George Brauchler, 710 KNUS. George Brauchler back with you here on the George Show, 710 KNUS. My thanks to Danielle Jurinsky for taking some time off of apparently not taking a knee, which is crazy, but a great, great day, both at the polls and in the courtroom. That was just a nice interview to have her on for that. Hey, listen, we got some callers calling in at 303-696-1971. I want to tell you about something that's upcoming as I free some orange from my teeth. And that is I owe Vince a call from Step Denver. And that's because I have this 2012 Chevy Traverse that is ready to go. I could probably sell it. I know I could trade it in if I was in the market to get a new car, which I'm not. I just took the RAV4, by the way, the hybrid, because I love trees, in to get it all fixed up yesterday. I could do that, but I'm honestly going to put my car where my mouth is. I tell you about Step Denver multiple times a year. One of the great things that we do is to go out on site and spend the morning out there. We're going to do that again this year. But these are guys and gals since 1983 who have been saving men's lives, who are trying to get off the street and off of drugs, much more akin to what Mayor Mike Coffman talked about in the 8 o'clock hour than the housing first kind of. That's just not them. It's not an easy program, but it's a successful program. And because of that, that means that they don't take any taxpayer money. That's how you know it's going to be successful. They do it the right way without all the government strings attached to it. But that means they need us to help them out. You could call up and donate. You could go to stepdenver.org and contribute. But one of the best ways is to do what I'm going to do, and that is to donate your car or your truck. They fix it up, maximize the value to you, and then they turn around and sell it. Every car is a space for a man to get in this program. That means every car is your ability to save a life. What else can you do philanthropically that has that same bang for that buck? Check out stepdenver.org. I'm going to call this number. You should too, 303-296-9020, 303-296-9020, or stepdenver.org. Because we're big fans, we're going to go right to Lynn before the other callers on 710 KNUS. Lynn, what are your thoughts? How it was great seeing you last night. Great seeing Bo last night. You seemed very happy.
Oh, George, that was so fun last night. You're right. The energy was high. We haven't had many times lately to be excited, and that was really fun. And you're right. It was the who's who of political world, and I was impressed. You know who was there? It was Joe O'Day and his wife Celeste.
I saw them too. I saw it was great seeing them.
It was, and it's always so nice to see people like that. So often they just drop out after they've lost. But, you know, he should have been elected.
Agreed. And he'd be a great Republican senator for us, given the alternative, for sure. And you're right. If you talk to him, Lynn, I did, he's staying engaged. He may never run again, but this is a guy who's behind the scenes working on those ballot issues that we care about.
Right. And I was so nice to see him. And, you know, he lost because he was pro-choice. That's just so upsetting to me. I think, you know, our people wouldn't vote for him. So a lot of them, that's upsetting about our party sometimes. But overall, it was great. And my little protege, Stephanie Hancock, won, which I'm so excited.
Great win.
She's an incredible person. You know, she showed up at my caucus in my precinct. I never met her. And, she said she wanted to get involved and hadn't been involved. She's big in the arts. And she said, I'll sign up for everything. And I called her the night before the assembly to explain to her what would take place. I said there was no candidate for House District 41. She said, well, I'll run. I mean, she was just jumping into the fire. And she lost, but she worked hard, but she learned so much. And she worked her little tail off in this election, and thank God she's been elected. She's just a real rising star in our party.
Real positive, too. You know what I mean? Like, she doesn't seem dour at any moment. Win or lose,
never.
She's just positive and upbeat. She's just great to be around.
Oh, she is wonderful. So that was a bright star. I was disappointed John O lost.
Yeah, I know.
I'm a little concerned about the school board elections. We did not do very well.
It's interesting because in other parts of the state, specifically the Springs, the conservative candidates crushed it out there on the school boards. You told me right when I came in and we got a chance to talk, you told me something that made my day about your appearance on the show yesterday.
Oh, right. I had called because we put in a voter guide. It's so hard to know for people to know who to vote for in a nonpartisan race. And so we put together a voter guide for Arapahoe County. and we're sending it out everywhere. But when I called your station, I was able to give out my email, and I got about 10 calls asking for voter information. And I put on Jimmy's show the other day, and the same thing. So that worked. That worked. So
You got a bunch of
interesting, though.
emails from folks. You're able to send it out. I love hearing that because that makes me think, no, we're having a difference. We're making a difference here.
Yeah, I really think so. And it was great. It was such a fun night, and it was fun to see you and Bill Owens. We haven't seen him in a while. And yeah,
I'll say this too, that, we talk with the big people whose names appear on the ballots and do the other stuff, but honestly, they don't get to enjoy the success that they enjoy without you and Bo and the rest of them out there behind the scenes doing all the heavy lifting and the hard work and the voter guide stuff and all that. Without you guys, we don't get to have those nights at JJ. So thank you. And thanks for keeping it up. I know you're not going anywhere.
No, I sure am not.
Lynn, thanks.
Okay, George.
Great seeing you. Thanks for calling in.
Thanks for all you do.
For sure.
Bye-bye.
That's Lynn Cottrell. Fantastic. 303-696-1971 is the number. Lynn's line is open. We're going to go right to Josh on 710. Josh, what are your thoughts, my man?
Yeah, no, more want to touch base on the Douglas County school board elections. To me, that was extremely disappointing. And I know you kind of mentioned we had a lot of wins. Last night we had some wins. I think Prop HH was one of those that
Big one.
was going to probably be easily defeated. More so, not to me, that's necessarily a Republican or conservative win. Obviously, that was our side per se. But I think in general, people want to keep their tax refunds, right? So for me, that's not necessarily a Republican or conservative win. I think that was kind of a given to me. But to me, I think that these school board elections, this is where the fight truly, truly is, not only for Colorado, but for our nation. If we lose our kids, through the education system, which we've already lost a generation of kids, if not 2 generations of kids, if not 3 generations of kids, to be quite honest. So to see the Republican turnout be so low, especially after how well
talk about that, because we didn't talk about turnout. Talk about the turnout in Douglas.
Yeah, I mean, it was dramatically below par from what it was from 2021, whenever we swept in the new board. And to me, that was extremely disappointing to see so much fervor, so much fire. I mean, I think that for somebody who's been a resident of Douglas County, it was really exciting to see kind of the party come alive, during COVID and during the school board elections and have all that happen. And for it to seem like we've just kind of fallen back asleep, to be honest, as a party. And I think the local party, I think the county party has a lot of work to do. I think there's a lot of leadership issues. I think there's a lot of communication issues. I think there's a lot of focus issues. They're not turning out the vote. They're not getting their base excited. And we're falling back into the same pattern that the county's fallen into in the past. We've always elected great commissioners and things like that. But when I see that, Ganal lost Douglas County.
Oh my gosh, crazy.
That's
Crazy Bob
wild.
Marshall became the first elected Democrat in the legislature from Dougco.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously the county is turning a lighter shade of red. That is a reality, as the county continues to grow and you see these apartments go up and you see these cookie cutter, developments happen. So the county is turning a lighter shade of red, and that's unfortunate. But at the same time, there is still a pretty heavy, Republican voter registration versus Democrat. And obviously there's a lot of independents as well. But I'll also see Geiger win, where you have 2 Republicans kind of vying for the same seat, and that vote gets split, and that's one we could have kept. And and this was a chance for kind of Republicans to really put their feet on the throat of the Democrat Party and just say, you're not going to touch our kids anymore. We're done with this. We won in 2021. We're going to win again. And it really worries me for the county that we have such a strong majority when it comes to voter registration, even with the independents we do have, and there's just no lack of, or there's just no umph, there's no excitement, there's no energy within the party of Douglas County. We're the last red county in the Denver metro area. We lose Douglas County, and El Paso's not too far behind, and the state is already pretty solidly blue. It's only going to get more so. And so this party, they need to stop messing around. They need to get the Trump voters, the Never Trumpers, the moderates. We've got to find a way to kind of get together and get unified, because Democrats, when they unified, they become pretty unstoppable, and they're not afraid to unify.
Josh, what's your explanation for how 5A and 5B went? 5A passed, 5B didn't. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, to be honest, I that was kind of surprising to me. It was actually funny, some of the conversations that I have had with some Republican voters who did not want to vote for the Republican board, or the more conservative board, I guess I should say, because they were pushing to have these 2 ballot issues down there. Like, hey, I'm not going to vote for somebody who's going to do a tax raising on me, or wants to raise my taxes. I don't believe in these teachers. And so, again, I think it goes back to that divide within the Republican Party, that in this county specifically and across the board, we're going to have to find a way to get unified and get these messages taken care of, and understand that These are two propositions that I think that should have passed, that we do need. In a county that obviously it tends to be very fiscally conservative, maybe turning more socially moderate, even though there's still that wing as well that's pretty conservative. And I tend to lean in that wing. I'm very socially conservative, very culturally conservative, fiscally conservative, but I also want to win. I want to make sure we win. And so I think that there's been that divide within the party to where people that I spoke with, they were going to sit on their hands. They were going to vote for these new board members because
That's just crazy.
Yeah, and I think that's the story of even Ganal losing to Polis, and as there was people that were just too polarized. I'm not going to vote for that person. And when it comes to this national election, at first illness, when it comes to nationally, when we have people on the MAGA bus and we have people in the middle, we have whatever happening, and we can't elect the president because we can't unify the party. We're going to continue to see this country go down the drain, and we've already lost, like I said, generations of children. To me, this is the biggest fight of the school boards, and it's so important for us to get on board with this, especially in Douglas County. Like I said, we're the last red county in the area, and if we lose this one, we are done.
We are the buffer that protects El Paso County from Arapahoe and Denver. I mean, that's sort of all that's left. You're right. Everywhere after that, up and down I-25 seems to be trending blue. So I don't want to say that Douglas County is going lighter shade of red. Highlands Ranch for sure is. Hard to know yet what's going to take place with all of the influx of folks out there into Roxborough or Sterling Ranch, the explosive growth in Parker and Castle Rock. Not sure what that's going to look like yet. We're going to know a lot more next November.
Yeah, and I would disagree with you slightly on the turning a lighter shade of red. I actually had been working and doing some political analysis for a campaign in the last cycle, and we were looking at Douglas County specifically, obviously as kind of being that big buffer. How can we get the turnout to be much stronger in a red county? And the analysis we did overall, we saw that on average, especially all the apartments that are being built in Douglas County, those tend to go 60-70% Democrat. So as we continue to see more apartments built, we're going to see more of that vote tend to move. And then even looking historically, I mean, if you look back in the early 2000s, Bush won Douglas County, and obviously there's been a huge demographic change, but Bush won Douglas County by 30+ percentage points. Trump won it by 7. So we are seeing it move a lighter shade.
You're right about the Heidi one. That hurt too.
Yeah, hey, so if it's maybe a DeSantis or somebody different, maybe that number bumps up to 10+. You get some of those number of Trumpers in there. Who knows? But it is trending slightly, a lighter shade of red, unfortunately.
Josh, great call. Thanks, my man. Good analysis. I'd love to hear your thoughts after watching the presidential primary debate that's going to take place tonight. I think it's NBC. And I think Hugh Hewitt, our own Hugh Hewitt's going to be on it. We're obviously going to watch that so that you don't have to. I'll probably end up listening to it at like midnight, but I'll cover that and we'll talk about that thing tomorrow too. Look, we're going to cut away for a break. We'll get the rest of the calls at 303-696-1971, the texts, and we'll wrap it up, but not before I talk to you. And this is for you, men. If you're out there losing your hair and you know it, I mean, there's a period of time where you're in denial and you're like, no, that's just because of the way I combed it, or maybe I'm under a little bit of stress. It'll come back. Listen, don't screw around. You can either make the decision to just shave it off and go all bald like my brother Eric, and it looks good on him. I got to get him to call in. But you may want to go back to having a full head of hair. Why don't you call up our buddy Dr. Tanya Pauls out there at Advanced Hair? And I'm telling you, Advanced Hair Restoration has this way that they've been doing this particular process that gets such great results. You can check them out at advancedhair.com. That's advancedhair.com. But you can get a free consultation. You start by calling 720-459-HAIR, 720-459-HAIR, not the rabbit, HAIR. If you qualify, and not everybody does, but you got to find out if you do, you get $250 off this successful treatment and 250 free hair grafts. Check them out at advancedhair.com. By the way, when you call them, just say, hey, I heard about you from George. I'm going to give this thing a shot. That's advancedhair.com. Listen, when we come back, me, we'll wrap up the show. We'll get ready for tomorrow. It's going to be a doozy with this presidential debate. Who's going to be left standing, in your opinion? 303 696-1971. George Brauchler, 710 KNUS.
Say goodbye to clutter and hello to convenience when you experience organization transformation in your home. Roll them out shelves. Your clutter transformation experts create affordable Colorado-crafted organized storage solutions. These custom options will maximize and organize your kitchen and bath storage as Roll them out shelves carefully designs and builds roll-out drawers to fit your space perfectly to clear the clutter. Contact owners Joyce and Brent at Roll them out shelves to schedule your free in-home estimate today.
to keep on. Keep it on right here, George Brauchler on the George Show, 710 KNUS. Just enough time to basically tell you, and you've heard this, I'm going to vouch for it myself. Whatever the ads say is one thing. I'm telling you the Ultra Botanica stuff works, and I know that because I'm the one that took it. And somebody last night at this great event came up and said, hey, I'm thinking about doing that. I've been hearing you talk about it. It doesn't cost you anything. That's why there's a free 3-day sample. You go to your natural grocers, go up to the vitamin manager, ask for it. As long as they've got it, and they've been running out of this stuff because you guys keep doing it, go get it and try it. Half the people that take the 3-day supply are feeling relief within 48 hours. Half of those feel it within 2 hours. It's all natural. It's curcumin based. It's called Ultra Cur. And you can find out a ton more about them by going to getultranow.com, getultranow.com. Do all the Google research you can on them and find out about them. Go to the natural grocers, ask for it, try it out, and then let us know how it goes, whether it's in person, in text, on the phones, whatever. That brings us really to the end of this show right now. I don't think you guys enough for being there throughout this process, for voting the way that you did to give us a little bit of a victory last night. HH went down hard. My thanks to Michael Fields for coming on. We had Chief Art Acevedo from Aurora PD in studio, Mayor Mike Coffman, City Councilwoman Danielle Jurinsky. We had Senator Barb Kirkmeyer. We had future Commissioner Pricilla Rahn. And you, tomorrow, let's talk about this debate tonight. Stick around. George Brauchler, 710 KNUS.